Welcome, y'all, to the 10th episode of Jeremiah the Podcast. I am Jeremiah Alford, and as always, thank you so much for listening and sharing this podcast with your friends and family. And we love that this is continuing to grow, and I appreciate all the support out there. Follow me on social media at Instagram at Jeremiah the Insta and Facebook at Jeremiah the Social Media. Thanks ahead of time. And today we have a wonderful guest with Stephen Powell. Now, Stephen Powell is a legendary coach of weightlifting. He has worked with 8 national champions, 2 Olympians, all in weightlifting, pro athletes such as NFL running backs. We have shot put, Highland Games world champions. He corresponds with international coaches. He works with many athletes all over the country as well as internationally. Someone who I enjoyed talking to. We talked about the funnest stuff before and even got into some more cool stuff with weightlifting later in the podcast. So definitely a great episode. Follow him at Palmetto Weightlifting. You can check out his website at palmettoweightlifting.com, where you can catch up on his latest blogs and his training and contact him for your own training as well. He's also available at powmongo at yahoo.com. Both of these will be in the description below, so check those out. Contact him. He's a wonderful guy. And if you're in the South Carolina area or North Carolina area or Georgia or Florida or anywhere nearby, come and see him. Fantastic guy, wonderful person to talk to. But without any further ado, we have Stephen Powell. And away we go. But since we got so serious to start with, let's talk about some fun. Do you watch Netflix or anything?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so what Netflix show are you watching these days?
I just completed the 2nd season of Master of None, which is written and produced by Aziz Ansari.
I love season 1.
And season 2's out, and it's really unique.
Yeah.
And the first episode of season 2 is completely in Italian.
That's awesome.
And it's really uniquely told through other people. And I'm not a big fan of Aziz's stand-up.
Yeah.
But he's a good writer. He's a good comedic writer, like Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
I was never a big fan of his stand-up, but his comedy writing and situational comedy is just hilarious.
And he's a good performer, like Parks and Rec, and every time he's featured or something like that, his character is out there.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of comedy in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I love stand-up.
Oh, okay. Who's some stand-ups that you like to listen to? So many.
Probably the most offensive ones.
Okay, I'm trying to think.
Jimmy Carr.
I was thinking that too. No one knows who Jimmy Carr is.
Jim Jeffries.
Oh.
And I couldn't disagree with them more on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But their sense of humor, and they're not going to ever be politically correct.
No.
And I can't stand PC. I just can't stand people who are too overly, let me not offend this group or that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everyone is so easily offended.
Oh, yeah.
These days that, people are just making up stuff to be offended about.
Yeah.
Get a spine.
It's they listen to a word, not to the context or the delivery. Yeah. Well, because we're just so cultured to just know text and not even phone call anymore, just see written word. And there's so much lost with tone and quality and body language that you just can't get.
Yeah, if people don't know what's going on at Evergreen College or at the University of Montreal with Jordan B. Peterson or Bert Weinstein at Evergreen College, it's so ridiculous.
Did you listen to Joe Rogan?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, so that's where I got most of my information. And
absolutely. Yeah.
And you can't I don't think those kids have evil intent. At least I don't know the Evergreen situation, but I don't think they have evil intent. But it's just that they just. So unaware. I think it's group mentality.
They don't understand that their philosophy is not inclusive. Mm-hmm. It's driving people further apart.
Oh, yeah.
And they just need a struggle. They haven't struggled nearly as much as Generation X or, because during my generation, we've had 3 wars, Bosnia, Iraq twice, Afghanistan, and whether those wars were merited or not, or what your beliefs are about those wars, we have lived through, the students now complaining about everything, and they were little kids during 9/11. I was an adult, and I know that we were going to be attacked again. The Brooklyn Bridge, the Manhattan Bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge. There are no words in Arabic for Golden Gate Bridge or Manhattan Bridge or New York or Brooklyn Bridge, but due to certain acts that are unpopular, we have not been attacked.
Yeah.
We found out about it and stopped it. So,
Yeah, see, my generation, like, we were so young when that stuff happened. Like, I only know, like, a handful of people, or not a handful, but I know, like, about, like, 50-50 of us don't even know, like, there's a common thing, like, where were you at 9/11? Well, our generation was, I think, in first grade, or not even then, and very, very unaware of what was going on.
Yeah.
And everyone past us, which are in the college generation now, like...
And I've lost so many friends that fought in Afghanistan and Iraq. I've lost so many friends that I don't know what to make of it anymore.
Yeah. I find that, like, you're right about the struggle. Like, there's no big struggle with our generation. Like, that's something I noticed. Like, I see that we, like, make up struggles a little bit more. Like, humans need a natural struggle, natural strife to overcome, to get to the next level, because we all are evolutionary animals. We all need to constantly progress. And so, like, we live in the generation, my generation lives in the era where if you have a problem, you call someone else to fix it. Like I listen to Joe Rogan and stuff like that, and he always talks about his generation, your generation as well, like, kind of like being left to do what you want on your own. Your parents would go to work or something like that. But my generation was full of overwatchers and cell phones and people always paying attention to everything you do. And if, let's say you have a flat tire, you call AAA, you don't fix it yourself. Like, I know so many people that don't even know how to do common car things.
I don't watch a lot of TV. I do listen to a lot of podcasts and watch, like, Netflix series, but I think Joe Rogan is a very important figure, because he has people on his podcast that he will absolutely disagree with.
Yeah.
But he goes, even though we disagree, we can sit down, have a conversation.
Yeah.
And they might even become heated.
Yep.
But by the end of the podcast, they leave friends. He invites them back, whether they're ultra liberal, ultra conservative. He's a guy who's saying, hey, you can agree to disagree.
Yep.
And you can disagree and still remain friends. It's not like, okay, you believe in that certain political system, or you believe in this, or you voted for Hillary, or you voted for Trump. I can't talk to you. It's nonsense. So he's one of the unifying voices of reason in this country.
Yeah.
No matter if you agree with his other things politically. He bow hunts. People always trash him, animal rights groups, but he's like, I use this food to feed my family.
Yeah.
If you got stuck in the woods in the winter, how would you live?
Yep.
So
he's ultimately, like, trying to find, like, the truth.
Exactly.
He's not trying to have some sneaky reason for it. Like, he's trying to stay as right and narrow as possible.
Right. And his stand-up is hilarious. His early stand-up was kind of hit or miss with me, but his last two specials, Triggered on Netflix and Rocky Mountain High on Comedy Central, were hysterical.
It's grown a lot. Yeah.
Oh, he's definitely mastered his craft, and I definitely like him a lot. Some of his podcasts, I can't listen to every one.
No, yeah, he puts so much out there.
Yeah, but I really like it. And Narcos is another series I loved on Netflix.
That's Pablo Escobar, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
the whole story of how by the end of season 2 he's killed.
Yeah.
But
a spoiler.
Once his monopoly reign on the cocaine trade ended, then cocaine trafficking increased.
Yeah.
To the United States. So the next 2 seasons are how the other families that he had a stranglehold on, rather, how they freed themselves from him and his cartel, and it actually increased. It actually hurt things, because there was one man and one cartel to go after.
Yeah.
Now there are several cartels working together and separately to all get wealthy. And it's just fascinating, because I still see news stories of $600 million found in some farmer's backyard in Colombia.
Yeah, everything's
it's like $600 million. That was what they made in a week. And that just makes El Chapo look like, more of a Boy Scout. I mean, it's just like, they made, back in the 80s, he made $600 million a week, and they're still finding his stashes somewhere. It's really, really accurate in the way that they put real footage, like of when he blew up the plane, and you see these really quick images of them cleaning up bodies and stuff, and
man, yeah,
and they really do a good job of imposing real footage with the filmed footage for the series, and it's so well done. And the actor, the actor who plays Pablo is really good.
Oh, it looks just like him.
Yeah.
They've been doing really good, like with characters these days. Like Tupac's latest movie, the guy looks just like Tupac.
Yeah, it's uncanny.
And he said the guy never acted really before. Like I think he did something in high school.
He did a play in like the 6th grade.
Yeah.
And I was never the biggest Tupac fan, although he had a book of poetry. That was posthumously released. Mm-hmm. And, he loved like rock and roll, U2, Sinead O'Connor.
Oh, yeah.
And he has a poem, I believe it was titled, "Have You Ever Seen a Rose Grow from the Concrete?" And I read it and I went, that's actually beautiful.
Yeah.
For a guy who kind of represented a thug life mentality, and flashy bling bling, whatever you want to call it, there is definitely a brain there. There's definitely a very intelligent guy there. It's just I don't think he knew. Yeah. He was torn between two worlds.
Yeah, because you could hear like some of his stuff is very, I guess, conscious rap at the time, or like very respectful and empowering to like women and all that. But in the same same with the songs, like right back to back, it'd be something completely different.
Yeah, he was charged with sexual assault and battery.
Yeah, and so like he was involved with the culture that just wasn't changing. He had like him and Biggie and stuff like that shaped a lot of the ground, as well as the big movers of like Puff Daddy and all those guys surrounding them. They kind of helped industrialize music. Yeah. You like anybody these days in hip hop?
Oh, Anderson .Paak.
Okay,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Both of his albums, his first album, Venice, is a little different musically, but his latest album, Malibu,
yeah, I heard
he's got his band, and if you don't know who Anderson .Paak is, he did a tiny desk concert on NPR.
Really?
And it's amazing. Anderson .Paak is a great drummer. He's a great keyboardist, pianist, and he sings and raps. And I'm not a big fan of all the rap out these days, especially what you would call
mumble rap,
crank or crunk, or like some of the artists where there's 2 notes in a song and it's the same drum beat over and over and over again. It's just sped up or slowed down, dump 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 da da dump dump, but it's just sped up or slowed down, and it's like he's an original artist. He's got a real band behind him.
He does all his stuff,
yeah. And he's got some great backup singers, and just YouTube Anderson .Paak and the Free Nationals live, and amazing guy.
My first exposure was his XXL freestyle, and I was very disappointed. I was like, who is this guy? It was like the 2016 freshman XXL cover, and I really was disappointed with like everybody almost on the whole list. Yeah. And then like I saw him, he sounded like, I love his voice, but I was kind of being captured with what he was saying, but it wasn't a rap. Like that's what I thought. But after listening to some of his stuff, like, and hearing his story, like on Sway in the Morning, I think it was, or Breakfast Club, like he's a phenomenal guy.
Yeah, awesome. His album was like nominated for Album of the Year, and then
I could see that.
Actor Donald Glover.
Yep, Childish Gambino. He's going to play Lando
Calrissian in the Han Solo movie.
Apparently, Han Solo lost their director.
They did. But they have filmed some of it.
Yeah.
But Donald Glover was in Community, and he was in The Martian. Show. Yeah. No,
I was so sad when it got kicked off. Like,
well, it got so close to being canceled. So many times, but like the paintball war episode.
Oh yeah.
When Chevy Chase was in it. It was so good. And he has a new show, Atlanta, that is really, if you like Master of None, really unique, very, very different.
Changing the tone of the content.
And it's relevant to current rap culture, but it's very unique at the same time. And his stand-up I really love as well.
Weirdo.
Yeah. His stand-up's hilarious. He's just a very talented guy.
Back when he was with Derek Comedy and all that still
And Awaken My Love was also. Childish Gambino was also nominated for Album of the Year. Yeah. And that dude can sing.
I was a little thrown off again because I'm expecting rap and stuff like that, but he's slowly transitioned to this like stylist R&B pop genre.
And he plays some really weird, like I never thought I would hear someone play the glockenspiel on some R&B songs, but he plays the glockenspiel. It's kind of like a metal xylophone type instrument. but it works. He does some really unique things that it's not like it's hard. Like he's master, instrumentalist, but he just does some unique things.
Yeah.
And throws it together and makes that formula work. And that album, we play it all the time in here. And I've got a lifter, one of my assistant coaches, Nigel Turner, like he will belt out those songs while I'm training in here. And Nigel's got a good voice too. Mm-hmm. So we play that, Anderson .Paak, Kendrick Lamar, Logic.
J. Cole.
And I'm not the biggest, I'm a huge,
Well, 2014, you have to respect that.
I love, folk music mainly.
Ooh, okay.
Singer-songwriters. I've actually worked in the music industry for a little while, in the Christian music industry, and I use that term loosely.
What do you mean by that?
There was
that was your genre or your area or the Christian?
Well, there was a band that formed here in Columbia called Siler's Bald.
Okay.
A long time ago. And they started out with a bassist named Laura Story, who's now won 2 Grammys for songwriting. She wrote the song Indescribable that Chris Tomlin made very famous.
Yeah.
And she's written another song that another artist made famous. I just can't.
Did she sell those, or did they kind of like?
Yeah. Okay. She made royalties, and she got the songwriting credit.
Good.
And she's a pretty big solo artist. And then Siler's Bald was signed to Essential, which is the largest Christian label in the country. Mm-hmm. And then they recorded their first album, and then was involved in a bitter lawsuit because Essential is owned by Sony.
Yeah.
So the same, there are some people who are of the mindset, well, if you listen to secular music, you're bad. You should only listen to Christian music. Well, Christian music's owned by secular music, and if you're not making money, they're going to drop you.
Yeah.
So as an independent act, Siler's Bald sold nearly 100,000 copies.
Wow.
Like Hootie and the Blowfish didn't even sell 25,000. Mm-hmm. And they got a major label record deal. And musically, Siler's Bald was very unique. They had a dulcimer player who was also a violinist, a bassist. They could do really good harmonies. They played bars. They didn't just play Christian venues. They played everywhere,
And it worked? Apparently.
Yeah. They were not going to specifically... We are only going to play in churches and Christian coffee houses. We want to play everywhere.
Yeah.
So they had the Essential album was called Rising. Mm-hmm. You may find it on Amazon or something, but
is it owned by the record label? I'm guessing.
Yeah. Well, they went to court and they had one of the best lawyers in the business. He's represented Celine Dion and several other artists who fought for their music, so they won the rights to all their old EPs and old independent albums, and ultimately they did not record with them anymore, but they have the one album out, and now the lead singer and lead guitarist perform under the name Finnegan Bell, which is pretty baffling to me. But
why is it baffling? Finnegan Bell?
Because
just the whole story behind them, or?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just Finnegan Bell's from Oliver Twist. I don't understand that connection there. But, they play a lot in South Carolina and Charleston.
Yeah.
And, I haven't seen those guys in years. I'm out of touch with them. But I grew up with the singer and his brother, who was their longtime manager. And his brother now manages Korn.
Oh, wow.
And some major acts now.
What do you think about the South Carolina music scene? Because you said you worked here a little bit.
Man, back in the 90s, I remember, I listened to Edwin McCain and Jewel before they were famous. I listened to Dave Matthews. I went and saw Dave Matthews before he was big.
Nice. When he was just performing for colleges and stuff like that?
Hey, no.
Hey.
Well, they're right up, there used to be the Elbow Room here, and then there was another place that had Wendell. Shh.
He just wants to get on the podcast. He likes Edwin McCain.
There's another place that's right on the corner of Divine, and it was another establishment here that I can't think of the name because it's been closed for nearly 20 years now. But there were 2 places, the Elbow Room and this other place, where I went and saw numerous acts that really hit a bit. John Mayer, and I'm not the biggest fan of John Mayer. Like when he actually released his album, I went, wow, some of these lyrics are terrible.
Yeah.
But he's a phenomenal guitarist.
That's what I hear.
The first time I saw him, he mainly played a guitar he made.
Whoa!
It would look like a piece of crap. It looked like a tree with some strings on it.
Yeah.
But the sound he got from it was like nothing I've ever heard.
Oh,
and
so
he
cool.
played on a stage where behind the bar there are like 3 TVs with on 3 different channels. And so during some of the songs he was playing, he started singing about what was on the TVs. And eventually the crowd of about maybe 80 to 100 people picked up on it. So they were turning around looking at the TVs and him. And, you know, he was a nice guy. I mean, back then, like, he took the time to talk to everybody.
Yeah.
But, you know, from some of the interviews he's given in the last few years, he's more on the side of douchebaggery.
Yeah, we can't expect, I think, living like that kind of lifestyle and that kind of like recognition and fame, I feel like it has to change you. Like,
yeah.
You can only stay humble in like a certain way so much.
Well, it's none of us
before
are
your
going to
reality
understand
changes.
what it's like to be tempted on that level, and like
Yeah.
but at the same time, maybe don't go into detail about, you know,
yeah, right,
who you sleep with and how you rank in bed. That's not, you know, that people don't need to know that.
I'll remember to not ask you that for this interview. Just kidding. Just kidding. Did you ever play any music yourself? You're a performer?
Not seriously, no. I mean, my mother's a piano teacher, and you know, I grew up, you know, off and on playing the piano, and you know, with certain things, I'm not very patient. So you know, I would learn a few songs, then not play for a while, then learn a few more, then not play for a while, and by a while I mean years, and then I play guitar every now and then, and you know, I know 5 or 6 chords that I can, you know, I can change the chords and play, you know, very basic music, but bar chords and stuff, you know, these sausage fingers really can't do a whole lot there.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's just sometimes bar chords are just so difficult. Like,
yeah,
some of them are just, and like, also the shape that your other 3 fingers have to make, just it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, B and F aren't happening without me breaking some strings or
yeah.
But I, you know, the simple songs from the Beatles to some Elvis to Jimmy Buffett to even Cat Stevens, you know, I've learned a few of those songs, and sometimes it's rewarding when I can, you know, write something of my own and just put some basic chords to it and then maybe fool around with it on the piano, but I would never perform in front of anybody, or I would definitely not sing.
You're not going to take over John Legend's piano one day?
Not at all.
Oh, man.
Not at all. I'd like to see him perform live.
That's someone on my bucket list.
But
I just came back from Bonnaroo, so I saw a few live performances. I've never really been to concerts before.
He does a tribute to Jeff Buckley.
Oh, yeah?
His second album.
Which song? Is it just is a whole album? Or?
It's on I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was inspired by Jeff Buckley. And for those who don't know, Jeff Buckley, his first album, Grace, was huge. And his father was a very popular folk singer and died of a drug overdose at 27. Wow. And Jeff drowned.
Wow.
When he was 27, when he was working on the album that would become his second album,
wow.
He had no alcohol or drugs in his system. He just took a dip in the Mississippi, and when you know, a lot that river takes a lot of people. There are some pockets that will just suck you down at the bottom, and you know, that was a great loss because one of his biggest hits was Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah.
Yes.
You know, Leonard did not have the best voice in the world, but he was a great songwriter. Mm-hmm. He did Nina Simone's Lilac Wine on that album, and then his own songs, Lover, You Should Have Come Over, Last Goodbye. You know, he was hugely famous with other artists.
Yeah.
You know, he talked with Pearl Jam backstage one time, and he performed the song Hearts and Thoughts.
Yeah.
And Eddie Vedder was just blown away. He was like, his interpretation of the song was so different, but Eddie Vedder was like, he just was speechless because he heard his song being interpreted in a different way by someone else.
Yeah.
And
it probably was with just as much of emotion that he performs with himself.
So he died before he really, really hit it big. But anybody, you know, if you like a guy who could sing, and a lot of people thought he was black.
Yeah.
Well, because, you know, certain songs he could just hit those notes, and if you're a white guy that primarily sings rock, but you influenced John Legend and Anthony Hamilton and other R&B singers, you're good.
Yeah, you have a little soul in your voice.
Yeah, like there's some live versions of Lilac Wine, or I believe he does a cover of the Smiths. I can't remember the name of the Smiths song, but it's just eerie.
Just the passion behind it?
Yeah, because he just, I'm not the biggest Smiths fan. I used to be, but, like he can just mimic people's voices. Morrissey has a pretty distinct voice. And just the way he can kind of musically conjure their spirit, and almost like, it's like they're reborn again.
Wow.
And he's done Queen live.
Oh yeah, the Queen's not an easy one to copy.
There's an old country ballad country song called, it's been covered by Johnny Cash and other people, but it's called Satisfied Mind. Mm-hmm. And it's just, his version is so eerie because it's about whenever your time comes to die, see to it that the only thing you have left is to die. Mm-hmm. And just the words to the song are so eerie, that, he died right after recording that song. That was the last song he recorded. And, there are versions of that live or on YouTube. And so it's really hard to explain, but that's the beauty of music. You don't have to really explain, why you really are like this artist. It's just something that speaks to your soul, and that's really I can say.
I almost find it when you like a song so much and you try to show someone else, you'll inevitably be disappointed in how it doesn't connect to them as much as it did for you.
Sure.
I've even heard, I always hear guys who make mixtapes for their girlfriend, and their girlfriend doesn't understand, they're like, oh, these are nice songs. And
that I've never done.
You never made a mixtape for anybody?
No. I've written some songs for some women I've dated, but I've never given them to them.
What would you name your songs, if you don't mind asking?
You know what? I don't remember. Ultimately,
okay. Guitar or piano?
Guitar.
Okay. Yep. Same.
Ultimately, I threw them away.
Okay. Do you think you could still remember them a little bit, or?
Well, no. I intentionally forgot them.
Oh, okay. Along with the girl themselves.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a time when I was younger where I was more prone to. You think it's love at the time, but it's really not. It's infatuation.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you get older and wiser, you can have that discernment of what love really is versus what's really infatuation. Mm-hmm. And
there's loving someone, but there's also having a good relationship with someone too.
Right. And I'm always really careful because in my early 20s, when I was 23, I was really close, really good friends with a young lady named Bethany. Mm-hmm. And we had known each other for years, and I first met her when I was 20 and she was 17, and didn't think anything romantically at the time. We worked at the same summer camp, and then 18 to 21, 19 to 22, 20 to 23, the dynamic of that changed, and we started we kept in contact after camp, and within 6 weeks of being diagnosed with cancer, she died. Mm. And the last time I saw her was right before they induced a coma.
Yep.
And I just couldn't. Before that, we had hung out quite a bit and talked, and I told her that I had some feelings, and surprisingly, she didn't run away or was shocked. She was like, "This could go somewhere, but let's take our time." And I was like, "I absolutely agree." And then it was, "Oh, you're dying."
Yeah.
And that took a long time to get over.
Yeah. But there was definitely something important of her life that needed to be shared with you.
Well, she was not afraid. She was a fearless person? Absolutely.
That's awesome.
She would just say, just pray for me, pray that, pray that I'm not afraid and that I won't be afraid. And she was so well liked by everyone at her school. She loved everybody. She was a runner. She wanted to go into acting. She wanted to serve in certain ministries, and it was a profound loss, and a lot of people, came to the Lord through her example. Just shocked that how do you get lung cancer when you're a runner. Your parents don't, she never smoked. Her parents never smoked. How does that happen? There's no explanation. There might be one now, but this was 2000.
Oh, it's still so early.
And they thought she had walking pneumonia for a while, and then it became something more serious. She started coughing up blood, and so it took some years for me to get over that. And so every time until my 30s, every time I had feelings or started to develop feelings, I just beat them down. And
that's not the way to do it.
No, it's not. Living in a place of fear is no place to live. As it says in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18, there's no fear in love. If you have any fear, you're not perfected in love. And I'm not here to preach to anybody, but, I only share my faith interpersonally with people who are willing to listen and open to the conversation. But, that's one of several verses that I remind myself of because, ultimately there should not be any fear. If you love somebody, if you really, get to know someone and you develop feelings for them, well, if they don't love you back, if you love them enough as a friend, and that's really what you should start out with, then you'll be fine with them. Now, you might change their view of you, if you, but, I'm fine. I'm 40 right now. I'm single, and I like going home. I like going home to an empty home.
Yeah.
To silence. I like to be alone a lot, and it's just right now I'm just trying to live every day and make decisions which serves me peace. And so the last serious relationship I was in, was in 2008. So and I've been on some dates, but most of them I just got up and walked away because they said something really stupid, or one date lasted maybe 3 minutes. She got there before I did, ordered a glass of wine, and just to break the ice, like, hey, what are you into? I really enjoy music, and she said something to the effect of, people who listen to music are emotionally unstable and just need something to a crutch to lean on. And I went, all right.
How did she know that about me? No, I'm just kidding.
I'm like, what do you do then? Like, you don't like any kind of art?
You.
So I was like, okay, you go ahead. Just go ahead and pay for your own glass of wine. Later. I didn't order anything. I had no idea how to respond to that. I just got up and left.
All power to you. I try to do. I don't know if I could do that. I would just try to be like, oh, they didn't mean it, or see something past it. Because I definitely went on a date where the first thing this girl brought up was that she's still living with her ex-boyfriend and she's looking to marry someone within the next 6 months. And I'm like, what? That was and I still finished the date. So, oh man, I don't think that would apply with you.
Well, I couldn't hang around with someone needy. Like that, or all love to her and hope she's doing well. But man, that just blew me away that someone was like that, up front. But you also talk about relationships with you're single right now, but with being a coach, that's a very deep relationship, especially with the sport of weightlifting. It's a very one-on-one, even though you have a team, it's very one-on-one between the coach and the athlete. You have to really understand that person. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
It's a huge mentor role because you have to also have them start understanding themselves too, from my experience.
Right.
With how do you feel out with your athletes? What's your objective when you're coaching your athletes?
Ultimately, I mean, there have been a couple of women I've coached online who are really close to my age, and I develop feelings for, and ultimately I think honesty is the best policy.
Good.
So, I felt like I could tell them that I had feelings for them, or I thought I was in love with them, and that would not have affected the friendship. I was wrong. And as a coach, I have to go, you know what, I kind of stepped over the line and violated their trust, because even though that it developed when you're coaching people who are adults, there's a friendship that develops with most people there. It's not just this draconian athlete-coach relationship. I mean, you really have to get to know people and find out what makes them tick. And, so now I just, and for the last few years, done a lot of inward looking, and, I just constantly seek out and pray for humility and wisdom. And, there are definitely things that, you shouldn't say or do.
Yeah.
And, so I try to surrender everything and keep everything in check and make sure that if what I'm feeling is not of peace or anything like that, if it's not going to serve me peace or the coach-athlete relationship peace, or if it will jeopardize the friendship that's there, then I'm just going to do what I can to just surrender it, let go of it. And because I have lost a couple of friends.
Yeah.
They were my friends, and I thought that the friendship would supersede everything else, but I was mistaken, and it was my fault they're looking ultimately for me to coach them and lead them. And, I wish I could have done things differently, but then again, I came from a place of beating down and ignoring feelings for so long.
Yeah. You're going through being a coach.
Yeah. And then to a place where, that's no way to live, to live in fear or just to live in anger over a little issue like that. So I went from one extreme to the other, and now, you live and learn.
Yeah.
And if you don't live and learn, then you should go, reevaluate everything. But so
some people are just too afraid to even live, to even try to learn.
True.
And so like you gotta go taking those chances. That's like, even though like you look back on it, of course I'm sure like you're like, oh, silly me and stuff like that. And it probably has this, I know when I look back, I have like emotional stings. I'm like, oh, why did I do that?
Sure.
But I don't know, ultimately it got you to here today and stuff like that. And you've had like wonderful success with your athletes over the years as well as yourself. That's one thing I always like wondered with coaching and stuff like that, being that I'm so young, I see all my faults. And I look up to coaches like yourself and all that, and y'all seem so perfect, y'all seem so knowledgeable and wise and all that, and it's really kind of cool seeing like you do have, I guess, human traits about you. You're not just like you're not just only a guru, you're also a person as well. And it's
absolutely
something fascinating I always find with that, like coach-athletes relationship and stuff like that. With how many athletes have you coached over the years that have made the Olympics? You've made one, right? Because what's her name?
Yeah, I was involved in coaching Cheryl Hayworth with Don McCauley the last 2.5 years of her career or so.
Don's over at MASH right now, right?
He is.
Okay. Yeah.
And Don was her head coach, and I was a competition coach, meaning, between coaching Cheryl and Anthony, there were some times when she was preparing for the Beijing Olympics where Don's mother was not in good health, and Don would have to go up to Rhode Island for close to a week at a time. So I would go down and watch and supervise Cheryl's training over that week. And sometimes she felt really good and can push it a bit. And so I'm like, let's do a few more sets. And sometimes we had to change one exercise for the other. But Don was her head coach and wrote out the day-to-day, week-to-week training, and it was really odd because Cheryl was pretty injured at the time.
Yeah.
We were working around injuries from a torn hip and torn shoulder labrum, and to bulging disc in her back.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
And that was leading up to the Olympics?
Yes.
Did she have any of those stuff prepared when she went into it, or?
She really didn't. She didn't have the time. Like after the 2007 Worlds, she went to the 2007 World Championships injured because she had a total 250 in order to send any women to Beijing. Wow. It was either Cheryl goes and totals 250, or either 4 women go or no women go. And if you haven't seen her documentary Strong, this is presented in the documentary Strong. The former president of USA Weightlifting, Dennis Sneathen, like, this is air to breathe for us. Now, one thing kind of makes me angry is that, one, she was injured.
Yep.
And it was kind of forced upon her to go compete injured. And she had to go hit numbers that she wasn't training.
Yeah.
And she had to go snatch at least 110 and clean and jerk 140. And she pulled those lifts out.
She got them?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Well, I'll get to Cheryl and how fierce of a competitor she is in a minute. But, Cheryl did not want to go to any world championship if she was not in top shape.
I agree with you.
And, the top super at the time was a woman from South Korea named Jan Mi Ran. And Cheryl beat Jan Mi Ran handedly every time they competed as juniors.
Okay.
Granted, Cheryl started a little earlier than Jan did, but by 2001, 2002, Cheryl's easily beating her, and then by 2004, within about a year, Jan Mi Ran's total goes up by about 25 kilos, from like 275 to 305.
Okay.
How did that happen?
Yeah. Extra sleep.
Yeah, extra sleep. So. And it was just weird because, Cheryl wanted to, of course, to earn the U.S. those points so that they could send a full women's team. But yet, something could have horrifically gone wrong. Mm-hmm. She had already blown out one elbow and she already was in pain. And so after that World Championship, she earned a full team.
Okay.
And then she had to go compete at the Olympic trials in 2008 and earn one of the slots that she awarded the U.S. She had to go to the Olympic trials and fight for one of them. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that way last year.
Okay.
One athlete was pre-selected. Now, that athlete had nothing to do with that decision.
Yeah.
Jenny had nothing to do with that decision. She earned the U.S. points. And if you're going to award Olympic slots by how many points you earn the U.S., that's fine with me, but do that with everybody.
Yeah.
If you're going to have the Olympic trials, then leave it all on the line at the Olympic trials. Because, one athlete bombed out at the Olympic trials and somehow still went to the Olympics. And I could, that's several things that were just brought up that we can address later. But back to Cheryl.
Because I do want to know more about the point system, because that's still something that's an average weightlifter doesn't really fully understand.
If you want to know the point system, I'm going to need about 3 fingers of scotch for that conversation.
It's just that intense and
when I'm in competition, my mind sharpens its focus so much that I know everything I need to know. But like with Cheryl and with Anthony and with some others that have made international teams, I help. I engineer the warm-ups, and I don't really have lifters warm up by how many attempts they are out. I have it down to minutes.
Oh yeah.
So they take their last attempt in the snatch about 2.5 minutes before they're called out, and the clean and jerk about 4 minutes before they're called out, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're on deck. It just means there could be one lifter following themselves, and you haven't, like Cheryl was always the highest opener in the U.S. So she was always going to be out last and always going to be following herself, so we had to take all the necessary legal changes to give her as much rest as possible between attempts. And, it didn't matter if she snatched 120 in training, she was going to do 125 or more. And competition without fail. She was just a competition performer. Cheryl never trained that well consistently. She had as many bad days as good days, but she could leave the gym, go focus on her artwork, work towards her degree from the Savannah School of Art and Design. Yeah. And, it didn't bother her. She really would put lifts together when she had to. Yeah. And, and then during competition, she just could get in that zone where she did not want to know what she was opening with. She did not know what was on the bar. She just warm up, tell her to go out, and she was in her own world.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Because I do my own warm-ups and all that. I have to see, I have to know the progress and know what checkpoints I've hit before I get on the platform. And it's really interesting to see. There's definitely 2 types of lifters out there. There's the lifter that who needs to hit the lifts in training, and then they only get kind of close at the competition platform, or those who always seem to PR on the national stage or national platform. Is that who normally your athletes? Do your athletes normally peak on the stage, or do they train? Yep.
We prepare. Don, his philosophy as well as mine is we peak them they peak on the platform. In other words, we don't really drive them to peak and then taper, especially someone who has extensive injuries of Cheryl's nature. And I coached another former Olympian. I was his head coach for a while, and he retired because he was a very good junior lifter, he and his brother, and he had to retire due to back injuries, and he took about a 5.5-year layoff. He began training again in Savannah after I moved back here from Savannah, but all the pain started coming back.
Yeah.
And so, by the time I was back here, I was involved in coaching around some physical therapists, some movement specialists. So he got a posture assessment, an Agashku posture assessment, did exercises for about 6 months, and then he had a plan to go back down to his original weight class, which was 77, and make a run for the London Olympics. And he did make progress, but he did win the American Open in 2010, despite having a stomach flu that week.
Wow.
He was in shape to do about 135 and 165, and he did 128 and 157.
I feel like if you had the stomach flu.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't eat for 3 days.
The weight cut must have been easier on him.
That was the good thing is we didn't have trouble making weight, and he wasn't that much over anyway. But the U.S. we plummeted that year from like 27th or 28th to 35.
Okay.
So if we were going to send any man to London, it was probably going to be like Henry Pierce.
Yeah.
Or someone like that. And I don't know what kind of progress he could have made, my lifter could have made at the time, but it just didn't work out. And so, he moved back to Savannah, and you move on.
You talked about I read an article online about some influences or some coaches that you coached under. I think, forget his name, bear with me, isn't it Jiangming Ma or the Lindenwood coach?
Yeah, he wasn't Jiangming Ma. He wasn't.
Thank you.
I've had 3 lifters that were online clients. One of them, his name was Nathan Mitchell from Maryland. Mm-hmm. He was awarded a full scholarship to Lindenwood University, but ultimately transferred to the University of Maryland his junior year because he just didn't make a lot of progress there.
Okay.
It was a small liberal arts college, and he made some progress, but Coach Ma isn't there a lot. Mm-hmm. He's traveling a lot, and Coach Ma wasn't one of the coaches that I talked to extensively about like the Chinese system. It was Coach Wu, Chuan-Fu Wu, who's now the head coach of Singapore. He was a teammate of Liao Hui and the current men's head coach in China, Yu Jie.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Coach Wu several times via Facebook, Skype, video chat, and I've talked to Chen Wenbin, who was the former men's head coach, and some things got pretty heated in China. Like some people wanted Chen to stay, some wanted him to go, and it got pretty ugly in China for a while. I've talked to some other people like Stephen Powell and Lester Ho, who have learned a lot. Like they have citizenship, and like Kurtzman has dual citizenship in Australia, Malaysia, and he goes to China at least once a year. He was a student of Coach Wu's for years. Mm-hmm. And so they over the years I have had many conversations with them about the Chinese philosophy of lifting, and it's not that much different than what you would find in the current day Russia or former Soviet bloc countries. They just have their own ideas specific to balance and how they understand the nervous system, which is an ancient Eastern way of acupuncture and pressure points and things like that. But
they're very big into the mental side of it, like the chi, I guess, is that right word, chi, or?
Yes, like the seat of power in martial arts or weightlifting or any sport is called the dantian.
Yeah.
And it's the the gut through the hips, the top of the quads. And the head is called the ba wei.
Okay.
And you want to connect the dantian to the ba as soon as possible. So the way that they teach balance, they teach them to pull. You connect the seat of power to the head as fast as you can.
Okay.
And for those of that don't believe in that stuff, well, go see an acupuncturist. Go tell them, hey, put acupuncture needles in kidney 1. You may not know what kidney 1 is, but it's the nerve center of the foot. If you see someone go get acupuncture for kidney stones, for example, you will see needles in the foot, and they're like, well, how do you treat kidney stones with the foot? Well, nerves of the kidney run into the foot.
Yeah.
And there's kidney 1 is a strike in martial arts where you strike that, and it's so painful you can make people go limbic. You can make the biggest person drop. So if you just walk around with barefoot, and an old man isn't looking where he's going, and he bashes you, right here,
the wrong spot.
With his cane, you're going to get hurt. Likewise, if you're walking around, in your yard and barefoot, you step on a nail or something sharp. If you step on the heel, you're going to feel it.
Yeah.
But if you step on that more of the forefoot right underneath kidney 1, it's going to hurt a lot of because things. That's where the majority of your nerves are, in the forefoot.
Oh yeah, there's like the whole, if you rub your, there's where your nerves around your ear, messes with other parts of your body, releases some sort of hormones potentially. You
see a lot of, not just Chinese, but Asian, like Korean and Vietnamese coaches, they'll slap bladder 10, they'll slap the back of the neck, and you have seven vertebrae that make up your neck. Yeah. But you have 8 nerves. Okay. And they all collect at one point in the back of the neck called bladder 10. Okay. And you can slap it, and people will really wake up and really become alert. And then you can, if someone were to come forward and try and push you or throw a punch, you can parry that punch and snap the forehead back. And as you snap the forehead back, strike bladder 10 and actually kill somebody.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, I've been taught it, and I would never try that.
Yeah, because I think this isn't a visual podcast, because I don't want you to demonstrate on me.
Yeah, that's the difference between traditional Japanese jiu-jitsu and BJJ, like Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Yeah. If, you can have my leg, you can try and take me down, but if we're in a street fight, you can take me down, but I'm coming right down with my elbow to strike you in the back of the neck. Yeah. On bladder 10.
You still study jiu-jitsu yourself?
I do from time to time, but my feet, I have very flat feet, and my feet just, I can't grapple, that well because of all the foot injuries I've sustained over the years. I still do some stand-up jiu-jitsu striking, some throwing, but if I'm taken to the ground, it's over.
For you?
I'm going to get arm-barred, I'm going to get choked out, and I'm also a big guy, but
you have better standing game.
Much better.
Oh, striking. Striking, yeah.
Yeah, much better striking than any kind of grappling, and I was doing it really seriously for a while. I lost 70 pounds, and I was really enjoying it. But then, in the fall of 2014, when I was at the Senior Nationals in Salt Lake City, my father almost passed away. And he's okay now, but he had blood clots in his lungs and developed a pretty serious AFib, and he still has AFib. And that, kind of threw me for a loop, because he was in the ICU for several weeks, and, they gave him so many blood thinners, the blood clots went away, but then that gave him some other issues. Yeah. And then in October, one of my best friends, he was a lifter, committed suicide. So it's just like, it was a while before I could really talk about it at length, and I stopped doing everything. I stopped lifting, stopped doing kettlebells, stopped doing martial arts. I just didn't have the will to do anything aggressive. Yeah. It was just not in my heart to do it. And it still isn't to a large degree. I still do some striking and striking practice and some throws from time to time. But, now I mostly swim and do some lighter kettlebell circuits and things like that. And when my feet are healthy, I do as much walking and as much, I'm as active as I can be. Yeah. But, I was in the emergency room Monday for another foot problem, another severe inflammation. So hopefully I can completely end these problems and become active again. I'd really like to do some hiking and possibly even start running. But
yeah. Have you checked in, like, is it like possibly inserts that you could put in? Like,
no,
Fleet Feet has some very specialized stuff.
It's more genetic. I mean, I have gout, and it's not
so
like I was never a real heavy drinker. My grandfather died of kidney failure. Because I don't know, back then in his generation, he didn't go see doctors unless it was an absolute emergency, unless you had a finger cut off or something.
Oh, yeah.
And my grandfather was one tough guy. He was a bootlegger, and then he fought in World War II. And
a real man's man right there.
Yeah, and then he became a believer and worked in cotton mills.
Yeah.
He had a 6th grade education, 7th grade education.
But he knew hard work.
Yeah, he worked in cotton mills along with my grandmother, and just came home wobbling, and they had to go. But he worked through excruciating pain, and then he started passing kidney stones, and and then my dad, didn't have any symptoms of it until his 40s. He was in the Ukraine.
Okay.
And he just did not know what was going on, but his foot became so swollen that he went to this was in the mid-90s, where the economy wasn't that stable. He was in a hospital that the floor was covered with human waste.
Yeah.
And he had to be on an IV for 24 hours. So it's genetic, and I don't have high uric acid levels in my blood. I've had so much blood work done. But you can't have uric acid levels in your joints.
Okay.
And,
and there's a lot of joints in the feet.
Yeah, allopurinol neutralizes uric acid in the blood. Well, I don't have high uric acid levels in my blood, so the only way to really get it out of the joints is to stay on corticosteroids. Well, that will also weaken your joints. So what's a catch-22?
Yeah, it's like,
So the biggest thing that I know to do is just to keep my pH balance levels checked, to stay very hydrated. The first thing I do when I wake up is I drink a gigantic glass of water with a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt.
Nice.
Because it's the same makeup and serum. Your serum of your blood is the same makeup as pretty much ocean water, seawater. And so that just before I drink coffee or anything, I rehydrate. And I drink gargantuan amounts of water throughout the day. And I'm not doing anything impactful on my joints like grappling or like any Olympic lifting. I just do light kettlebells, and I swim 4 or 5 times a week. Yeah, I'm a big guy, but I love being active. I love doing the physical things. I hate sitting still.
Oh, yeah.
And so it's really, I'm prone to some waves of emotion and impulsiveness when I'm laid up with this foot swollen. And,
you never wanted to walk more in your life than when you can't.
Right.
I had an ankle surgery. I broke my ankle playing rugby and never wanted to do more in my life. Came back, tore my ACL within like a month or 2 after coming back off the surgery and able to walk again. And that was the worst 6 months, a year of my life.
Yeah, I couldn't do anything. I tore my tricep tendon.
Oh, yeah, I see it's gone. Nice one.
And I had that repaired in 2010. And I don't know, there was just one day where it became really, really inflamed, and I didn't know what it was. And I eventually went to the doctor. They took an x-ray and said, we're pretty sure that you have blown your tricep tendon, but we need an MRI. And we need the swelling to go down. And because, anytime a joint area is injured, the gout's like, kill it, attack it.
Yeah.
So, they did an MRI and said, it's hanging on by a thread. We're going to have to reattach it. And I actually woke up during the surgery.
No way.
Yeah. I've had 2, I had my wisdom teeth pulled in my late 20s, and I woke up during that surgery. And the anesthesiologists are like, what does it take to get a really good buzz on? And I'm like, a bottle of scotch.
Yeah, you're a big dude. You're a tall glass of water.
It's not like, I try to drink, I like scotch, but I don't drink it very often. I don't drink beer. That's the worst thing for gout. But from time to time, if I went to bed or someone gives me a bottle of Lagavulin for my birthday or as some gift, over the course of an evening, there are a couple times where I've had the whole bottle.
Yeah, you don't even realize it.
And I'm kind of buzzed, but, I'm not chugging it. And, I just naturally just have a very high tolerance for it. And so they're like, get out of here. And I'm like, all right, well, we're going to put you on a drip. And if you start to wake up, then we're just going to wait a minute, put you back under. And so, Wendell, please stop. Come here. So
he wants some scotch.
The elbow surgery was supposed to be maybe a 40. Come here. It was supposed to be 45 minutes, and it turned out to be 90 minutes.
Oh, okay, man.
The doctor had to use a bigger. He had to use a surgical drill. Okay. He had to use a much bigger surgical drill, and he had to have someone help him push his hand through my joint, through my elbow, because my bones were so thick.
Yeah.
So that was part of the reason.
You're literally big boned.
Very. Yeah. I've had an M-Body 520 scan.
Yeah.
And my bone density is about twice that of a normal male.
Okay.
So a normal male skeleton would be 4 or 5 kilos, and mine is nearly 9 kilos. And on 220, Wendell, excuse me 1 second, my boys, come here, buddy. And
he's just saying, I'm big bone too.
Of the 300 something pounds of my body, 224 pounds is lean muscle mass.
Okay.
So it's technically impossible for me to weigh less than 290.
Yeah.
So
I'll say, and that has to do fantastic on your feet.
Yeah. So I would love to get down to my ideal body weight, and I was very close to that in 2014. But just these stupid little things keep creeping up.
Yep.
And
life.
And yeah, the older you get, the more people you lose.
Yeah.
So.
No matter how many plans you have, life has the biggest plan overall.
Again, in the Syrian conflict and stuff.
Yeah.
I've lost quite a few friends to that, and although I see justified, we have to do something in certain regions, but I'm just really tired of being at war.
Yeah. I feel like it's not even really. It doesn't even feel like it's like an event. It's more of like just a constant state. That's just how it's going to be from here on out.
Yeah, and knowing, every day we try to fight Assad's regime, he kills 1,500 of his own people every day, and that's not reported.
Yeah.
And if you've seen the documentary by Sebastian Junger, he made the documentary Restrepo.
What was it called again?
Well, the first documentary he really was known for was Restrepo.
Okay.
And he made a documentary about the overthrow of Gaddafi, in which one of his cameramen was killed.
Wow.
And his recent documentary, Hell on Earth, The Rise of ISIS, debuted on National Geographic, and it will be re-aired on National Geographic, but it was one of the hardest things I've ever watched, because you just don't feel good about humanity, because we are trying to do something over there, but the more we try and intervene, the more Assad will say, I'm going to kill more of my own people. And so...
It's catch-22 again.
Right. So we're only going to intervene if he gasses his own people. It's okay to bomb them and to shoot them in the street. It's okay to kill them, but okay, we're going to draw the line at gas, We need to use chemical weapons. And then, we planned an attack, and then the president at the time, Obama, was like, no, we're not going to yet. And, he says that he doesn't use gas anymore on his own people, but in fact he does, and this documentary proves it. It shows it.
Yeah.
And, so the children over there have known so much pain that they don't even cry anymore.
It's part of they're
holding your dead brother or sister or father or mother is so commonplace that it's just, they're numb to it. And I don't mean to get morose or morbid, but it's just, my father was in the region back in 2009, and he was in Syria. And
was he fighting over there, or
no? He's a missionary.
Missionary. Okay, that's right. Okay.
I mean, he's a professor at CIU, and he's taught all over the world. And
you said 2009, so
yeah, he was over there in 2009, and this was, Assad has been in power a long time, and he is long before there was civil war there. He was one of the worst dictators. Back in 2007, 2008, when YouTube was still relatively young, you could YouTube, top 10 worst living dictators, and Assad was always on the top of that list.
Yeah.
and people had no idea who he was or what he was doing to his own people. But my dad was there, and he talked to some of the people that he taught with there, and they said we just lack leadership in Iraq. We've had just really horrific leaders, and due to this lack of leadership, this region we may have 1 or 2 more years of stability, and then we're going to erupt, and that's exactly what happened.
Yep, predicted it.
Yeah. So back to weightlifting.
Yeah, it was actually there was one like all love and happiness now, right? Everyone's so happy, like
sure,
and put everyone in a good mood, as if I think they're probably in the middle of work right now. Or I listen to my podcast when I work out. I like not mine, but I like to listen to podcasts or interviews when I work out. I haven't been a big fan of listening to music these days. It's just, I don't know, I get in my head too much when I listen to music. I like listening to conversations. It gets me out of the thing.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned about jiu-jitsu and striking and all that. I'm very interested to hear what your thoughts are with Conor and Floyd Mayweather. Conor McGregor, Floyd Mayweather.
Well, I'm a huge fan of Conor and UFC, because boxing was so dead for a while, and there's some excitement back into boxing. I mean, Triple G versus Canelo is going to happen this year. Klitschko had a good war with Joshua, and that was unexpected. But that turned out to be a really good fight. We've had Kovalev and Ward fight. The rematch was kind of controversial. Vasyl Lomachenko is the human matrix machine, and T.J. Dillashaw boxed Vasyl Lomachenko. If you don't know who he is, just YouTube search Vasyl Lomachenko. He is probably skill-wise the best boxer I've ever seen. Yeah. And it took 4 rounds for Lomachenko to figure out T.J. Dillashaw. TJ was taking it to him. So for the striking experts like Firas Zahabi. Okay. He's considered probably the best striking coach in the world. He was the longtime striking coach of George St. Pierre. Oh, wow. Rory McDonald, who knocked out Tyron Woodley, had these 2 wars with Robbie Lawler. He's at Bellator and just knocked out one of the top guys in Bellator. There are so many others that kickboxers and even boxers that Firas has worked with. But if you talk to pure boxing analysts, they don't like MMA. No, yeah. They don't like anything that takes the spotlight off of boxing, except that the thing that you fans like about MMA and the UFC in particular is that generally you have to fight the top contenders. Now, the UFC at times does have to make the big money fights or they would be bankrupt. And they're getting a little ridiculous with interim titles and interim belts and stuff, but I'm a big fan of Conor. There are certain people that trash talk and it bothers me. And then there are certain people that trash talk, and I find, like, you are not going to find an Irishman. Oh, yeah. Who does not trash talk and is not boisterous or loud. And, what's exciting is that people from Northern Ireland and Ireland are coming to his fights, all waving one flag, the main Irish flag. He has just as many fans from Belfast as he does in Dublin, and, the 2 capitals of Ireland, Northern Ireland, and he just may very well unify that country. I mean, he has, really 2 countries that want to be one country again on his back. And when they fly over here and opponents pull out, he's going to fight somebody, because he's not going to tell the thousands of people that flew over here, go back home, sorry, I can't fight for you. Yeah. So no matter what people think of him, he'll fight anyone, anywhere. And he'll fight out of his comfort zone. He'll change weights. He'll fight Nate Diaz at 170 because Nate couldn't make weight. It was on such short notice that he couldn't make weight. And whether you like Conor or not, those were 2 great fights. Yeah. Those are great fights. And, you can't really stand toe-to-toe with Nate Diaz. I mean, you better have a game plan to kick him and to kick him to the legs and to the body like Josh Thompson did. But and then he insisted on... he lost and he didn't cry about it. He didn't like it, but he won the rematch. It was a close fight, but I had Conor winning 3 rounds to 2. So did the majority of people, including Firas Zahabi, who always has a fight right now. But if you ask, the pure boxing experts, they say Conor doesn't have a chance. Well, people who know striking knows that Conor's much bigger than Mayweather. And Mayweather can only prepare for, he's preparing He's only used to fighting other boxers.
Yeah.
The way Conor is a southpaw, but he switches stances often.
Yeah.
The way he uses space and the way that he creates angles and the way, everyone he knocks out doesn't see the punch coming.
Mm-hmm.
How do you knock Jose Aldo, one of the best strikers ever in UFC? He knocked him out in 13 seconds. He saw him coming in, landed a precise punch, it's over.
Yeah.
He knocked out Eddie Alvarez. He embarrassed Eddie Alvarez, the lightweight champion. And Eddie's plan was to go grapple him and take him to the ground. Well, around halfway into the first round, he knocks Eddie down and hurts him. And Eddie's like, what am I doing down here? How did this happen? And you get back up and you're just on survival mode after that. Conor, you cannot sleep on his striking.
Oh, no.
And, Conor's not going to go in there and try to outbox Floyd Mayweather. He knows how to use distance. He knows how to create angles. Michael Corey, Maidana, an old Shane Mosley hurt Floyd Mayweather. And none of them have the punching power that Conor has. Mm-hmm. So if Conor lands a clean punch, it's over.
If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Conor an amateur boxer back in Ireland?
No, he was always in MMA. No, he sparred.
Okay.
Every MMA striker spars in boxing all the time. So he knows what boxing is. He sparred. Again, T.J. Dillashaw sparred with Vasil Lomachenko. Nate Diaz spars with Andre Ward.
Yeah.
Who just won a pretty controversial fight against Kovalev. It was stopped.
Yeah.
And Kovalev was hit with low blows like 4 times in the round.
Yeah.
But
also Conor has like one of the best movement coaches ever.
Absolutely.
With Ido Portal.
Yeah, Ido Portal.
Yeah, I love the guy. I found him I was so excited. I found him on the internet long before he was Conor McGregor's coach, and then all of a sudden Conor McGregor lined up with him, and I was like blown away. I was so excited to see. I knew he was going to start taking over the MMA even more. And so with that kind of, Mayweather's very elusive. And so with Ido, I can imagine Conor just being as elusive as
I don't think
Mayweather.
it's going to be boring. it could be it's going to be an eventful fight, and that Conor's going to go look in there.
Yeah.
He might try and fill out Mayweather for 1 or 2 rounds, and he's going to end it.
Oh, yeah.
He's going to attempt to end it. It could be a really boring affair.
Yeah.
But I can't wait for the press conferences and the trash
talk. Because they're two of the best.
Absolutely. So that the trash talk might be more exciting than the fight itself.
Yeah.
But people who say that Conor's not going to land a punch or doesn't have a chance don't know.
That's not. Yeah, it's so.
They have no boxing analyst I know was ever a fighter. Mm-hmm. But if you take Brandon Schaub was a Golden Glove champion in boxing, okay, and he knocked out Mirko Cro Cop. So people can say he wasn't he knocked out Mirko Cro Cop. All right, he actually stepped in the octagon and beat a few good people.
Yeah.
So. Joe Rogan is a striking expert, an MMA expert. He's a 2-time North American Taekwondo champion.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even realize
in his early 20s, yeah.
Wow.
He was huge into Taekwondo, then got into a street fight, not a real serious fight, but, got into a big sparring match with a boxer, and the boxer kicked his butt.
Yeah.
And he's like, what is all this rehearsed movement doing me? If I get my butt kicked by a boxer, I need to rethink my fighting strategy. I need to learn a fighting style that isn't predictable, that adapts to whoever your opponent is.
Yeah.
And then he came and he started practicing jiu-jitsu in his early 20s, and he has 2 black belts under Enzo Gracie and under Eddie Bravo.
That's also what I wanted to say was the predictability. Conor can study all Mayweather's boxing history and all his different examples of fighting. What does Mayweather have to study on McGregor? Very little of his combat is like hand to hand. He does a lot of kicks. He's an expert with
the
his
stances are different. The jabs are different. If you look at the fight breakdown of the way Conor avoided a lot of punches against Nate Diaz, Conor will have more of a fencing, striking stance, and then as soon as Nate will throw a jab, Conor will lean.
Yeah.
And right after the jab, Nate's throwing a right hand.
Yeah.
And Conor will lean and throw a left hand between Nate's 2 arms, and that's how he knocked down Nate. Yeah. 2 of the 3 times he knocked Nate down, 1 was with a right hand, but 2 were with the left hand. Mm-hmm. And he actually beat Nate to the punch and threw his left right between Nate's left and right arm. Mm-hmm. And it's called, Faraz Zahabi calls it the touch of death. Conor has the touch of death. And if Conor can take a lot of punches against anyone, Chad Mendez, Nate Diaz with 4-ounce gloves. I think he's going to laugh when he gets punched by 10-ounce gloves.
Yeah.
You know, I don't see Mayweather knocking him out because he is taller, and Conor's fist is about as big as Mayweather's head.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to watch it. It's going to be fight night at my house. You're welcome.
I'm down.
You're welcome to come.
That's going to be so sick, yeah.
And, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It's just bringing excitement back into fight in general. And I think that it's going to get a lot more exposure to UFC. And, you know, whether Conor wins, if he makes a good fight of it, if he hurts Mayweather, if he, you know, Conor has everything to gain, and Mayweather has nothing to gain from this. So in other words, I mean, Conor has nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know, and the fighter has nothing to lose and makes $100 million no matter what happens.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't care. I know that Conor's not going to do anything that he doesn't believe. He's not going to fight anybody or do anything he doesn't believe he can do.
Yeah.
And,
this is kind of cool. Him being I'm sure he even feels like but being in the underdog position for once. Like, not
there's footage of him supposedly sparring horribly. That's fake. I mean, that's not real.
He doesn't fight like that in general. I saw that too.
Like, if you go by how, you know, if you want to go by how people sparred, Muhammad Ali never should have won a fight because he worked on his weaknesses. He laid on the ropes, let people beat him to the body, beat him to the head, unfortunately. He never looked good in sparring, and yet he went out and knocked out, you know, George Foreman. He knocked out Joe Frazier in their third fight. It was a TKO, actually, but, you know, the sparring for him was ways to condition his body to take punishment because he wasn't the same fighter as he was before his 3.5-year layoff.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, that did him in. You know, that caused his Parkinson's disease or syndrome, whatever it was. You know.
Yeah.
He just, you know, you can't really just, if you just say, well, this sparring video is horrible. Yeah, no. And I'm pretty sure that, you know, there's purposefully going to be some footage released of Conor looking bad, but
they're not going to release his good stuff.
Right, that's all.
He's a competitor.
Right, that's all a part of the plan. People can say and predict what they want. I think it's going to be exciting, and no matter what happens, I think the press conferences are going to be hilarious. And Conor's already done some hilarious stuff on Instagram.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, dude, he goes, look forward. He goes, I look forward to fighting Floyd, and it's a picture of Floyd Mayweather Sr. It's Conor, and then it's Floyd Mayweather Sr.
Yeah.
You know, and he's already taken some. I don't think it's going to get real personal or real nasty.
No, yeah.
They both started training for this in May.
Yeah.
They both opened camp, and they both have been. You know, I think it's going to be more playful. I don't think
they're going to put on a good show for everybody.
Like, people think Conor and Nate hate each other. There's footage of them backstage.
Oh, they're the big,
There's footage of them backstage laughing after the bottle throwing incident. You know, and they both got paid, and they both respect each other. You know, and of course, you know, if you know, Nate thinks he wants the rematch. It was a close fight. Conor won, but you know, it's not like, you know, Nate in front of cameras will act a certain way, but you know, Conor carved his face into a fillet. He carved his legs up.
Yep.
You know, Nate had to go to the hospital and get on medication so he wouldn't have blood clots in his legs. You know, I mean, Conor beat him up.
Yeah.
You know, really beat him up. So, and no matter who you think won, you don't have to hate one fighter or the other. It was a great fight, regardless. You know, it was a great fight. So, anyway, I'm a big fight fan. I can talk all day about it. So.
You mentioned so many names that I'm went over my head. I was like, oh, I wish I knew so much more. I'm gonna get some research, and I'm gonna talk to you again more about.
I'm a total dork, you know.
Were you this way with weightlifting too? Like, you knew all this history before you got into it?
Absolutely.
So when did you first start learning about weightlifting?
When I was 11.
Oh, wow. Did your dad do this, or were you around?
When I was in the summer of '86.
Yeah.
Every summer I went to this camp called Ben Lippen Camp in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And now there's a Ben Lippen school.
Okay,
there's
I know
Ben
that.
Lippen Elementary School and Ben Lippen Middle School and High School. And I was actually strength coach there for a number of years when it became a school. But it started out as a camp and in North Carolina. And in 1986, Paul Anderson came and spoke. And he was wheelchair bound at the time.
Who's Paul Anderson, by the way?
That's him.
Sounds so familiar.
He's the last American male to be Olympic champion in 1956.
Dang.
And he's the man pressing all that weight over his head.
Okay.
That he autographed that to me.
That's awesome.
And he back squatted, and there's some differing data, but I've been to his youth home 3 times, asked his widow, and his best friend became his male nurse when he was more or less on his deathbed, and he trained with Paul when Paul would come off the road, and I asked them, these people aren't dishonest. I'm like, what did Paul really squat? And they say he did 1,000 for 3 reps.
Oh, that's gross. That's so insane.
And one guy said he did 1,200 pounds, and he did. It's kind of debatable what the weight it really was, but in Reno, in 1958, 3 times a day, he squatted a weight that was around 1,160 pounds or so.
My God.
It was a 10-foot long bar, and each safe, and they were see-through safes, and each safe contained 5,000 silver dollars, so it was $10,000.
Yeah.
And CBS would not release the footage of it. He did it on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Really?
And he went all the way down. I mean, he had 36.5-inch thighs. So he went, and he squatted barefoot. So,
oh, gosh.
So he went as low as his thighs would let him. Allow him. But back when there was the clean and press, he set his first world record in the Soviet Union. He was the first American team, along with Tommy Kono and some other U.S. lifters. They were the first athletes to set foot in the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
Whoa.
And he set his first world record by 10 kilos in the press.
Whoa.
And the rush, he did it in Gorky Park to a packed crowd, and they were laughing at him when he walked up to the bar, because they were like, no way he's going to do it. And he clean and pressed it, and they all erupted and called him a wonder of nature. And they worshiped strength in that culture. So an American actually was their poster boy. Wow. And he influenced Krlovich, Pisarenko, a lot of these old, Taranenko's back there, but, all of them were asked in interviews, did you look up to any American lifters growing up? They say, yes, Paul Anderson.
Man.
So he did some unique things. He trained more than once a day. He back squatted, and no one trained the squat exclusively as an exercise in the 50s.
Yeah.
He took a chin-up bar and rigged it up as a squat bar in 1955, and that Goodwill competition. And then later that year in Munich at the World Championship, of which he won, there were squat racks. They had built squat, and people were squatting. So, I mean, he did a lot of things, He competed. Ivan Abagiev was obviously in different weight classes, but Ivan Abagiev was competing in Bulgaria and saw Paul train 2 to 3 times a day. Because he didn't train all the lifts all at one time. He would go in, train the clean and press, or just the press, do some pulls, do some squats, leave. And he'd be back in there 7-8 hours later drinking a whole bunch of milk and working on the snatch and doing some pulls and doing some squats again. So, I mean, he could have potentially influenced a lot of different countries, but he got countries using squats as a primary exercise to build leg strength and power. And
that's like what we live and die by these days.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like squatting is what's in. Big thighs, big butt. Everyone wants those. Big quads. With weightlifting at that time, how did you even see it? Like, there's like weightlifting's not as popular because CrossFit really blew it up for like my generation.
Well, after I saw Paul speak, I heard him speak, and I bought his first biography, which was written by Jerry Jenkins. And Jerry Jenkins is known for this Left Behind series that I never read and never will. But he did write some good biographies, and Paul has a second biography written before he passed away, which is much more comprehensive. But I bought that, had him all, he autographed it for me, and I read it like 100 times, and I started writing Paul. And all I knew about weightlifting was what I read in that book. And then my dad went and found some other books about weightlifting and the old era of the clean and press, snatch, clean and jerk. And then by 1988, there was the Olympics in Seoul. And one of the biggest stories out of that Olympics was Naim Suleimanoglu. He clean and jerked 190 at 60 kilos, but he had defected from Bulgaria to Turkey 2 years before in Australia. Okay. Because they just overnight changed his name because he was ethnic Turk living in Bulgaria. He lived in a town called Pichtar, which is on the border between Bulgaria and Turkey. And he was discovered as a weightlifter when he was 10 years old. He begged to compete at a local weightlifting competition. And a guy named Enver Turkaleri was there, and he would not let him snatch.
Yeah.
But he kept pleading to compete. So he was about 40 kilos in body weight, and he clean and jerked like 45 kilos that meet.
Yeah.
No, excuse me, he was 25 kilos in body weight. And he was very small. He was about 25 kilos, and he clean and jerked 45 kilos. And then the coach went, "You've got some talent."
Whoa.
And so at 11 years old, he left his family to go train in a sports institute. And by 15, he set his first senior world record.
That's insane.
When he was 16, he became the second man in history to clean and jerk 3 times body weight.
Wow.
And so he set, he snatched 152.5 back when there were, 152.5, 157.5. There were 0.5 kilos. They now have the 1 kilo rule. And so the story of him fleeing Bulgaria, fleeing the oppression, we're going to change your names to sound more Macedonian or Bulgarian. So, your name is now Shalamanov. Mm-hmm. And, they tore down mosques and just oppressed an entire group of people. And so, Bulgaria eventually had to pay $1 million to Turkey for his official release. Turkey had to pay Bulgaria $1 million for his official release. And so it was, they just kept replaying. Whitney Houston sang one of the theme songs for that Olympic Games, "I Will Be Free." And they kept replaying that story and those lifts over and over and over again.
Wow. And
so I remember watching all of the weight classes. Back then you had a little, VCR, VHS, and I learned how to program the VCR to record all the weightlifting, and I still have those videos. So I started watching everything, and then when I started training in weightlifting as a teenager, Richard Soren was my first coach.
Yeah.
And I use it fairly loosely, but that's probably Joe.
Yeah,
he's got a key.
Got it. Okay. By the way, we can wrap up soon in this minute.
Well, we haven't gotten to weightlifting yet.
I know we just got touch on it a little bit. Let's see. With weightlifting, what do you see the progress of weightlifting going today? Like, do you like how things have been evolving?
Well, 10 years ago, the total membership in the USAW was less than 3,000. Mm-hmm. When I moved back to South Carolina, I became the LWC president, and I was the only registered club in South Carolina.
Yeah, you can answer. Yeah, you're good. Watch out for that mic real quick. Yeah, hold on to it for you. Gotcha.
All right, go in and quietly warm up.
Thanks. What's up? Jeremiah, by the way.
I didn't know y'all were... That's all right.
It's all good.
He's,
nice to meet you, man.
I prepare him I do his conditioning for armed forces training.
Oh, that's awesome.
Matt's going to be really quiet until...
You'll have like a small little feature in the podcast now.
Okay.
What branch? Army National Guard.
Well, he wants to go into the Rangers.
Oh, special group right there.
It is. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
That one needs to flip in, and there we go. Technology these days, so tricky. I'm just kidding. What was it? We were talking about today, progress today. Yeah, and you're saying about 10 years ago?
Yeah, 10 years ago, the sport was a flicker. It was, less than just under 3,000 total.
It was in powerlifting shadow, right, at that point?
It was in everything shadow. And, in 2007, Cheryl was not lifting her best, and we really didn't have anyone that was in any way near medaling in the senior worlds. And now 10 years later, we have the total nationwide membership approaching 75 to 100,000. It has exploded.
Yeah.
Oh, and with that exposure, we have discovered young talent. CJ Cummings, I remember 5 years ago. He was 10, 11 years old, weighed 45 kilos maybe, and he snatched 90, 95, and he clean and jerked 115, and I'm like, good Lord.
And his brother's so freaky too.
Yeah, Omar decided to play football. He has a sister that lifts too.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure how old she is. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, with Harrison Morris, who did not go to the Junior Worlds, I believe he just decided to prepare for the Pan Ams. And Maddie Myers is a huge talent, and we can't predict the future. I hope these athletes stay healthy, and every year new athletes emerge,
new all-stars, like these new young guys, and even older guys. Wes Kitts came out of nowhere.
Sure. And I never thought I'd see 3 94 kilo lifters all snatching in the 170s. Jared Fleming, Colin Burns, Norik, Ordanian, it's just, we still have a ways to go until we send a full men's team to the Olympics. But, I think that we're going to see a women's overall senior world champion or Olympic champion sooner than we will men. Mm-hmm. Because our women have always just been ahead of our men in terms of ranking, and I could buy, they have a different, constitution with the nervous system and biology. Yeah. Women break world records at 4 times the rate of men in weightlifting. Really? They do. Yeah. And, but, it's just very hopeful with the much stricter drug testing that is happening now, all the retest positives that came up from Beijing and London. Let's punish those countries by kicking them out of the sport, or
at least suspending them for a little bit.
I don't know if it may never be a complete level playing field, but at least it's more level than it's ever been. Yeah. And, other countries are really in danger of being dropped from the Olympic program.
Yeah, so many are getting popped.
Yes. Or just because of poor performances. I mean, we were very close to being dropped from the Olympic program. Mm. A lot of people aren't aware of that, but, Cheryl was single-handedly carried the sport on her back for a while.
Go her.
Yeah. And so anybody who has any Olympic aspirations or dreams can really thank her, because they don't know how close we came to being dropped. Man. And I overheard conversations between several U.S. coaches and people in the IWF. We would have still had the world championships, and we still would have had opportunities to improve, but, we barely qualified one male to go to London and Rio. Yeah. But by Tokyo, I think we'll have 2 or 3 men, if not a full team. Mm-hmm. And, C.J. Cummings will be older by then, and what we do internationally this year doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter, of course, going into the quadrennium of 2020. What we do next year into 2019 is what really matters. Yep. So we have some awesome women. The 48 kilo class is starting to get really competitive. We have
and records keep dropping.
Yeah, Sean Waxman has a couple of really good lifters. 53 kilo lifter named Caitlin Hogan, who's doing, I think, 84 and 106. I mean, she's a savage, and she's pretty young. So, I think that the 53 records that Melanie Roach has had, I believe the snatch record was already broken, but, Caitlin Hogan definitely looks good for more. Yeah. Like she could potentially do 90 and 115 or more. And, that's awesome for a 53 kilo woman, not on drugs to do. Yeah. And, and we have, Morgan King still out there, but, Maddie Myers, Maddie Rogers,
Sarah
Robles, Jenny Author, and we have, and there's another lifter named Amy Hay who's really powerful.
Yeah.
She's really powerful. I think she power cleans 125 or 130. Yeah. She's had some shoulder issues and problems with her jerk, but she's snatched 106, I believe, at the American Open last year. Just a lot of potential there. And then there is this other lifter that lifted at the Senior Nationals who hasn't been lifting that long, but she snatched 103. And she power clean and jerked 125. And
I think I saw that. I saw a video.
I had a really good 75 kilo lifter who came to me because she was really, really injured. Her name is Jillian, and you could see her on her Instagram page. She snatched 102 in training, and she clean and jerked 130 in training. And I think we show her doing 115 or 120 for a double in the clean. But earlier that year, she was in so much pain she could barely walk. Yeah. So we had her do a posture assessment, some physical rehabilitation. It took about 3 or 4 months for it to really heal. And then her PRs before that were like 88 and 107, somewhere around there. I might be off a couple kilos. But in about 3 months of training with impunity, meaning I could train and increase the intensity every week, when she was healthy, she made a lot of progress really quickly. I just don't think that she was really prepared to win it all, Yeah. Because she was in shape. Jenny Alter was hurt.
Yeah.
And was not at her best in Dallas at the national championships. And Jillian, I started her with a weight that she could power snatch. But it was just I just don't think she was really ready for it all.
Like the mental side of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She had an injury too, and I'm not going to make any excuses, and neither will she. Like, we're not going to blame it on the injury. She had a wrist injury, but it was all systems go. It's just, it was just a number of things, and
This last nationals was a weird one. There's a lot of people that like bombed out or didn't perform as well.
Right. And one thing that really I would like to see improve from the judges' point of view is the IWF needs to really clarify what constitutes legal arm movement versus real legitimate press out. Because a lot of U.S. coaches seem to think that any arm movement is press out, and that's not true.
It's simple, it's almost like simple, just natural flexibility in that elbow just has a natural sometimes bend.
Right. I mean, the elbow can stay locked.
Yeah.
And the shoulder can stay up. It's not going to go down or decompress, or, the arm can move. This is legal. And some judges just call that as press out, and it's not. And it's really frustrating sometimes, and I know that they have a job to do and they don't get paid to do it. But, a lot of people spend a lot of money and a lot of training time
invested their
for
lives.
It to come down to somebody who's not really paying attention or doesn't have a clear understanding of, we have, the LWC referee test. 6 questions are about whether or not the singlet can touch the knee sleeve.
Yeah, well, or if you can wear gloves in the back room. Well, the other one, I don't even know the answer to that.
If Muslim female women can wear singlets that cover the entire body, then why do those questions matter? If it's not applicable to them, it's not applicable to us, or to anyone. As long as they can clearly see your elbows and knees, what does it matter if it's just a waste of time. Those could be 6 questions that go deeper and more in detail into what constitutes, legal arm movement versus press out.
It needs to be focused on what the controversies usually are.
Because some of the most seasoned, experienced coaches are throwing their hands up going, I don't know, what was that red light for?
Yeah.
And that's frustrating.
And it's always the press out in the snatch or the jerk.
And at competitions now, the technical officer in the back is measuring belts. Like they have a measuring tape, and they're measuring the width and length of belts. And I'm like, listen, if the belt is made by Alika, if it's made by Rogue for weightlifting, then it's illegal. They have to make it within the legal parameters. Yeah. If someone clearly has a powerlifting belt, which no weightlifter would use, a thick powerlifting belt.
I don't see it.
But I was like, why are you back there? Like, okay, if you want to measure it, but if my lifter's called and the clock's ticking, I'm going to tell him to go. Like your opportunity to measure that belt is gone. You can measure it after this.
That should be in the weigh-ins. Even though the weigh-ins are long forever.
Just don't walk up and go, hey, hold on here, we got to measure that belt. Well, if it says Alika, if it says Rogue, then it's made by a weightlifting company for weightlifting. And it's going to be made within the parameters. So it might be 2 milliliters off. Whoop-de-doo. And that's just, some of my frustration. And there are some great refs and great officials out there, but they're
also human too.
There are people that have only been involved in this sport 3 or 4 years who are refs and who were TCs, and I've been involved with it for over 20 years, over half my life. And I mean, come on.
Yeah, and to give them the benefit of the doubt, this sport did just kind of blow up really fast within the last 5 years.
But
and so they're adjusting.
Math.
Yeah,
it's math. Dude, we have enough funding now to, like, all of our top 8 ranked athletes, senior.
Yeah,
their stipends should be tripled.
Oh yeah, I was looking at that. I was
their
like,
stipends should be tripled. We should have the top 8 junior, male and female, should also get a stipend.
I think, well, no, not top 8, but yeah.
The top. We used to have a junior squad and a senior squad.
Yeah.
That got some kind of reward, and now they lowered the stipends because the sport was dwindling in popularity, and now, with membership fees, renewal fees, club fees, entry fees for national events, I mean, God knows how much money they're making.
Oh, and after a yearly,
but they have enough to hire Piros Dimas, to hire Thomas Faher, and that's great. That's great to have them over here, to keep Zygmunt over here. We don't really need the OTC to happen. We need more regional training centers.
Yeah, especially the Southeast and West Coast. Like that's where all it's centered right now.
Exactly. We need more regional. We don't really need just like gymnastics doesn't need the Olympic Training Center. Everyone's going to go to the Caroli's.
Yeah, you're going to go to where the team.
They're going to go to Washington with another really famous coach.
I saw him on Sway in the morning, I think. I forgot his name.
Our best gymnasts are not produced on the Olympic Training Center. So, so I am very excited about where the sport is going, and no matter what one's coaching philosophy is, or if the better the more competitive we are as a country within every weight class, then that's going to cause competition to go up and up and up. And so I'm really excited about the direction we're headed. And there's been no better time than now to pursue it. And it does, to be a weightlifter, it does take sacrifices and discipline, but it's not like you have to give up your life like a gymnast does or like a swimmer does. If you begin weightlifting, just I take a where's the fire approach. I am in no hurry. If you have been lifting for 2 years or less, I consider you to be a beginner. And I don't care how much progress you make in that time. There's no point in training twice a day or 7 times a week. You need to train by how you feel.
Yep.
And being told to train through the pain, and I'm talking about serious pain, not just muscle soreness and fatigue or things like that. But I've heard, I saw Cheryl Hayworth fall apart. I saw Oscar Chaplin fall apart and blow his knee out, 2006.
Yeah.
I was there, and it sounded like a hot water balloon just completely exploded.
Way.
And a lot of coaches don't know how to address pain or how to rehabilitate it. And it's not every coach's job to either. But you need to have a network of physical therapists and people who go, you know what, it takes connective tissue 9 months to heal, because joints and connective tissue and bones heal by diffusion. Muscles, can heal much quicker. But, you can't take a let's train through the pain approach. Where's the fire? Make sure that their body assimilates to the training. Make sure the emphasis is always on mobility and flexibility. From the beginning, that was one of the first things that Zygmunt pointed out when he first got here in 2010, was there's not near enough emphasis on mobility, on warming up. And, the steps to learn the lifts, were pretty archaic, like the rest of the world teaches the lifts from the ground up. And largely the top-down approach, the high hang, low hang to the floor, is taught, and that's not really what the rest of the world does. They used to teach the advanced senior level of teaching the jerk was 5 steps. Well, it's 18 steps or so in Poland and in the Soviet Union. You better be able to do presses in the split jerk position. They have these things called the Napadri jerk drill, where you have the bar across the shoulders, even on top of the head. And there's no dip. You just drive up onto the balls of the feet and split very quickly. There's various walking lunges where, you do a walking lunge and then you stay in that split position and do a press overhead. And then you do another walking lunge and press, overhead on the opposite leg. But, I have Zygmunt's jerk clinic condensed to about maybe 10 minutes on my Palmetto Weightlifting page. And
which you should definitely check out. There's a lot of good information on that.
It was over an hour long, and Zygmunt put the microphone down to demonstrate certain things and forgot to pick it back up. So, I could hear what he was saying, and I could understand what he was saying, but I condensed it all down to about 10 minutes to most of the demonstrations and to the stretches that he wanted done, because he bent Casey Bergener around like a pretzel. And Casey, he was a heavyweight down from a super heavyweight, and still he couldn't demonstrate everything that Zygmunt wanted to do, so Zygmunt would just demonstrate it.
Okay. Well, they're also like the culture of these other countries that you're listing are so much different. Like they start so much early, so they have gymnastics that has a lot of focus with and their mobility is focused so early. We have they even have like our Western toilet makes us even more like inflexible.
It sure does.
Maybe with the squatty potty, everyone will be able to have better mobility and better Olympic lifters.
Absolutely, yeah. We sit down. We just sit down way too much.
Yeah, well, that's our culture. Yeah, our culture is very like laborious, very long-term sitting lifestyles. Maybe throw in a medicine ball to sit on. That's like the new thing. Actually, I saw like I think it was Jason Klepa who was demonstrating a walking desk, or like a walking conference table desk. Like it works in like you're on a treadmill, like those new self-propelled treadmill. So it was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. With the sport of weightlifting, they've started incorporating the new AO series, the new regional competitions leading to an American Open Series final. What's your thoughts on that?
Overall, very good. I mean, the qualifying totals are very low, and it just gives lifters a chance to compete and find out what competing nationally is about without the pressure of it being a national championship or the final American Open. Before this series, I would always encourage people to go to the Arnold, because there's no qualifying total. Okay. It's the most organized meet of the year. Mark Canella and Columbus Barbell do a phenomenal job in organizing that. Mark is on a personal talking basis with Arnold.
Okay.
And Arnold loves weightlifting, and a lot of people don't know that Arnold was a weightlifter before he was a bodybuilder. He competed at the Junior European Championships a couple of times. Oh. And back in 2006, maybe it was 2007, they were giving Tommy Kono a Lifetime Achievement Award. And off the cuff, and this is when Arnold was governor, so he had all his security with him. But he goes, "You mind if I say a few words about Tommy?" And he got up and gave about a 30-minute long speech about how he idolized Tommy Kono, that he was, he didn't have a lot of footage in Austria growing up, but the one lifter he watched all the time was Tommy Kono. He tried to replicate his technique, his speed. And Tommy had quite a good physique as well. Yeah. But and just from memory, he had nothing written down, and gave Tommy a standing ovation. And that was just really moving to see, is that you could just clearly see that Arnold meant what he said. Yeah. And he held Tommy in the highest regard. And he passed away last year, and I have an autographed picture. I saw that up there. So if anyone wants to take that from me, you're going to fight me for it.
Oh, okay. I thought you were just now offering to me. I'm like, thanks. I shouldn't have, but I will.
No, I'm going to have to pull out a high-powered weapon.
Yeah, I was like, you already told me that you could take someone down with just pushing their head and tapping their back. So I'm going to keep my distance.
So, I'm really pleased and happy to see where weightlifting is, and my own system of training has developed from the influences I've had in my life, which range from the former head coach of South Korea, Shin Ho Kang, to the longtime head coach of Australia, and now, since the mid-90s, the Oceania Institute on the island of New Caledonia, Paul Koffa, who trained a number of Bulgarian and Russian lifters as soon as communism came down. Their countries did not have the money to pay them, so they went to Australia or some other countries. And so there were a handful of Russians, like Igor Sadikov went to Australia, Stefan Botev, Sevdalin Marinov, Bogoy Bogloyev, Kirill Kunev, they all went to Australia. And, Paul had a really good relationship with Bulgaria before communism fell. Yeah. And so, he'll tell you, his system of training is not Bulgaria, and he saw the Bulgarian system in action, and it hurt a lot of people.
Yeah.
It hurt a lot of people. He's the person who nicknamed Ivan Abagiev the Butcher.
It just broke people.
Yeah, he was like, how can you defend the injury rate your system, has? And he goes, well, when you go to war, you have casualties. And he was like, okay, I guess you can afford casualties under communism, but we can't here.
Yeah.
We're a democracy. We don't, we're not lifting for the same reasons.
Yeah, we have a lot of different motives.
I have met a lot of Bulgarians over the years, and a couple of them really liked weightlifting. Most of them hated it.
Oh, it's like us in running. Our culture has been bullied to run.
Yeah, it was something that they were discovered that they were good in, and they did it to provide for their families. They did it to get an apartment and a car or a house. Most of them have nightmares about the training, and woke up screaming in the middle of the night in pain. Paul Koff been better quote is those in democratic countries who really think they know what the Bulgarian system is, or think that's going to work in a democratic society are only kidding themselves. Yeah. And, every Bulgarian champion had their own personal coach. And as long as that system worked, Abagiev wouldn't interfere. So I've met about 8 former world champions, and every single one of them I've talked to train completely differently than the other one. I've met Galvin Boevsky. His coach was Histra Boev, and trained completely differently than Alexander Barbanov, for example. I've met him several times. He's now living in Montreal, and I've met him at several Pan Am Masters meets. I've met Stefan Botev on a couple of occasions, and I've met Antonio Krasov, coached in Savannah for about a year.
Yeah.
And he coached a lot of like Anthony Martin and some of the kids who went on to become some of the better lifters from that team. He was there for about a year, and I run into him on a couple of occasions when he lived in the U.S. He lived in Savannah, then he lived in New York. He might have lived in New York first, I'm not sure. And then he moved out west where he hooked up with John Bros and stuff. He's living back in Bulgaria now, but it's hard to remember. Yoto Yotov was another one I talked to, and he was coaching for Finland for a while, and it was weird. Like they're like, everybody thinks that they know how we train, and there's a Bagiev system, and then there is, their personal coach's system.
Okay.
And as long as they got results that Bagiev wanted, then he allowed them to train the way that their coach had them train. Galvin Boevsky.
Those coaches saved those guys.
Yeah. I just kind of laugh and chuckle when people can have a pretty good understanding of what a Bagiev system was, because he was in California for a number of years.
Okay.
But, not everyone that became a champion trained under that system.
Yeah.
And that's what everyone seems to be under that impression, and it's really not true.
Well, basically, I think people these days use the term Bulgarian method just as a max out,
right?
And testing and determining what you do from there off your daily maxes,
right?
And which is like a nicer version of what apparently happened, from what I can tell. Mm-hmm. It's also a good sales point.
Yeah.
With the American Open Series, we're bringing a lot more competitions available to athletes.
Right.
It's now overlapping a lot with world competitions, like Junior Worlds and or Youth Worlds is right next to each. Or I'm trying to think. There was a competition with the American Open Series that overlapped, and there's one I think coming up with this AO series. Pan Am's, that's what it is.
Yeah.
With all these new opportunities to compete, how do weightlifters should navigate? Competitive weightlifters should navigate. Definitely, I guess, lean towards the bigger competitions. I guess the finals, AO finals, and then Pan Am's, but.
Well, I mean, wherever you are in your training, always have short-term and then long-term goals. So, for some people who start out, they're quite a ways away from qualifying for the overall senior nationals, because in certain weight classes, the totals keep going up every year. So the 85 kilo total, the 94 kilo total are pretty high in relation to the super heavyweight total. So. The 77 kilo total used to be 225, then it was 245, and then it was 275, and so in your development, just if you want to reach a certain level of competition, well, you have to get used to the competition atmosphere. That's why before the American Open Series, I like, go to the Arnold, you will lift in front of a big crowd.
Yeah.
You know, the past 2 years, even the B sessions were crowded. You couldn't have fit another person in there sideways. The warm-up areas were really crowded, but, you know, a lot of participation and a lot of people in attendance in the audience, and that was just really exciting to see. And so, you know, if people are nervous about lifting in front of people or what the warm-up area is going to be like, well, that's a great time, you know, because there's really no pressure unless you're one of the lifters competing in the prime money portion of the competition. There's no pressure to really do anything but total, you know, and I make sure that everyone there totals. I don't care if we go out and power snatch, the power clean and jerk the first attempt, we're going to total.
Yeah, you got to get
We didn't spend the money to come here to just bomb out.
Yeah.
We came here to get some experience and to watch other top lifters perform and you know, to really see what the better lifters look like up close and in person. And you know, and then, you know, the American Open Series, okay, then perhaps if they're still a junior lifter, then, and you still have 3 or 4 years to go as a junior, then aim to become a competitive junior lifter, then a collegiate, then a senior. And, you know, there are some, you know, freakishly gifted people that can just jump and leap over people and make a tremendous amount of progress in a short period of time. And then those who, you know, they're going to have to work really, really hard for the first 3 or 4 years before they really see consistent progress. But once they see progress, once it comes really easily after that, you know. So I just make sure that, you know, I don't push people beyond what they're capable of, you know, volume-wise or training-wise. I'm very careful to single out any kind of structural imbalances or any pain that they're in and help rehabilitate it and treat it. And, you know, and I just make sure that, you know, we do have some fun in training with it. It can't be all serious all the time. And, you know, there are some people who just enjoy weightlifting. It's their outlet. And it's more of a hobby, you know, and so I don't coach those people the same as those who come in and say, I want to be a champion.
Yeah.
Those, you know, those people I do coach differently. I'm a little different. I'm a little more acerbic with people who, you know, if they have more serious goals, then okay. But we can't waste time, and you can't allow yourself to be swayed by feelings of uncertainty from, you know, you have to know what you want, what your goals are, and then every day pursue them no matter how you feel emotionally.
Yeah.
How you feel physically, I do care about. But if you're like, yeah, this feels heavy, or I just feel like I'm not progressing, well, I don't care how you feel. That's not the truth.
Yeah.
So you better walk every day in the truth of who you are and what you know you want to be. Don't walk in that door if you don't. Because I'll kick you out. You're not going to waste my time.
Yeah, especially if you're coming in serious.
Yep.
There has to be, if you want serious goals, you should have serious consequence if you're not trying to, like, the best stories are the people that really achieve the greatest success are the ones that had no other option but besides success. If you have that option, that door to take the easy way, the comfortable way, then I don't know, there's a lot of people that will take that way. And I'm definitely a person that would do that sometimes too, but you gotta,
and I've seen,
set yourself up for success.
What it takes for a lifter who's a legitimate shot at medaling. You know, Cheryl Hayward prepare for the Athens Games and then being involved with her preparation for the Beijing Olympic Games when she wasn't that healthy. I mean, she as a competitor still was like, I will not open with less than 130 and 170. Like she was earlier in that, you know, in the year, she was like, I'm going to heal up and I'm going to go destroy everybody. Okay. You know, because China announced that they weren't going to send their super. A lot of countries didn't send their supers. So actually, Cheryl's best total was 287, and 277 won silver. Man. But the injuries cropped back up. She got really bad bronchitis there with the pollution. Yeah. And stuff. I mean, she lifted well below her best and was just, she got upset, but she was just relieved that it was over. Yeah. But, you know, but I've seen the training of when she actually performed better and won medals and stuff. And, you know, it's hard. Yeah. You know, you can live a somewhat normal life, but you have to take care of yourself, rest when you're supposed to rest, and take care of yourself outside the gym, go to sleep get to, just have a routine of you're going to be in bed by 10 or 11 p.m. You're going to wake up at 8 or 9. You're going to wake up and get the blood moving, go walk, go swimming, do some light plyometrics, maybe some light training in the morning, go home, take a nap, and then train in the evening.
Yeah.
And it really has to be that. There's no room for anything else. I mean, because training only gets harder when you're preparing on that level. It only gets harder. It's never easy. So you better have, you can have all the physical ability in the world. And I've coached, some of the physically most gifted people I've ever seen since I was involved in coaching Cheryl. And if you don't have it mentally, you can have all of the physical potential in the world. What good is a Ferrari with no wheels on it? You arguably, have one of the most powerful, efficient engines in the world, but without wheels, it's not going anywhere. You can turn it on, you can hear it, you can hear it roar, but you're not going to go an inch. The wheels are your mind, and you better have a powerful mind to match the physical ability you have. If you don't, then you're just a Ferrari with no wheels. And that's just
I guess you'll look really hot. That's the one bit of it, because
Ferrari's
pretty hot car.
Yeah. Other countries, their lifters don't care how they look. They want to win.
Yeah.
I don't think Vasily Alexiev ever cared that he had a big gut. What he cared about was that the Soviet national anthem was being played and that he was on top of the podium. He didn't care.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
It's
not a beauty pageant out there.
Yeah.
The only thing that matters how beautiful is when you stand up and make those elbows locked out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I really would like to see, South Carolina. I've had some opportunities to coach elsewhere, to join other teams and stuff across the country and potentially even overseas. But, South Carolina is rife with talent. We have a huge, university here.
Yes.
And there was no major university in Savannah, yet Savannah sent half of the team that went to Sydney, and 2 lifters and 1 alternate that went to Athens. So a small town like that with no major university can become a hotbed of weightlifting. With where weightlifting is going now, I think that South Carolina and the East can rival California in a friendly, competitive way.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much potential here, and some people are finding weightlifting in middle school and high school around all the schools here, and we C.J. Cummings is from Beaufort, and that's a pretty small town, but you just, who knows what kind of, I just know that there's a tremendous amount of talent here.
Oh yeah.
And hopefully some of that will be tapped into and found out, and I have plans to grow this team and this business, but I'm not in a big hurry.
Where do you see how do you see the sport of weightlifting eventually helping their athletes? Like right now, athletes are very self-funded. Like there's a few stipends, but
the USAW. There are some people employed. I have no idea what their jobs are. We need to reward the athletes.
Yeah.
We need to reward the athletes first and foremost who are producing for the U.S., who are earning us points. We need to reward them a lot more than we are now, and we need to reward the coaches who are producing athletes. I don't care what. The USAW level 1, level 2 doesn't mean anything to me, because, and I'm not trying to dump on it or say it's worthless. For a lot of people, that's their first exposure to any kind of rules or
like what the rules are.
But, having learned from an international coach first, and having read a lot of international manuals, mostly Russian, on how to begin and how to develop weightlifters from beginner to intermediate to advanced. The first time I read a USAW manual, I laughed out loud much of the time.
Yeah.
Because okay, it's great to to have these lengthy explanations of velocity and velocity curves, but where does that information?
Yeah.
A lot of people leave those tests with their head spinning, going, "How can I apply what I learned to help my lifters the next day?"
Yeah.
Like, what can I take away from this? And now, okay, we have Thomas Faher, who's rewritten the manuals, I believe, and Thomas was in Great Britain for quite a while. He was in England, and I have a distant relative named Hannah Louise Powell, who's a 48-kilo lifter, and Zoe Pablo Smith. I've met a couple. Well, she came to the Arnold 1 year, maybe 2 years, And they both stuck with their personal coaches after a period of time. And so, you know, I don't know. It's just, you know, we have a lot of really former weightlifters, Ilya Ilyin, Klokov, Chinese lifters and coaches coming here doing seminars. And when you have an opportunity to learn hands-on from these kind of people, especially those who speak English, you know, fairly well, go to those.
Yes.
You know, go learn from champions, you know, if you can afford it. Now, there are some seminars I don't recommend, absolutely don't recommend at all. You know, those who went to the seminars when Liao Hui and Liu Xiaojun came were pretty disappointed. They didn't do any lifting. They hardly didn't do any talking. They weren't allowed to take photographs.
Wow.
If someone's dropping $600 to go, let them have fun.
Yeah.
You know, some seminars are more just about to make the coach look better.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just the lifter just lifting.
Right.
And not really interactive.
Yeah. You know, not that you can't learn anything, not that you won't learn anything from them, but you know, the seminars that Klokov did with Ilya Ilyin and Zygmunt over in Waxman's gym and other parts of the country, the feedback overall was positive. They were very hands-on. They you know, talked to everybody. They were very sociable, hung out with people. And that's the kind of mentorship.
Yes.
Mentorship means everything else.
Great word.
Everything else. You know, you can have all the degrees in the world, and that's fine. But when you've been mentored by a really good international coach that teaches you how to count attempts, you know, who'll ask you, okay, look at this lifter. Okay, why did they miss that lift? You know, and you know, they're teaching you. You know, Coach Kane worked with me 3 times a week, and then when he would be, you know, sitting down watching Cheryl or someone else lift and go, you know, do you see what she's doing? You know, when she, you know, had to chase that snatch forward, do you see what she's doing? That's causing that. You know, you learn, you know, and then from Paul Koffa to Zygmunt, I had a lifter at the OTC for a little over a year named Kyle. Kyle made the World University team, and he went to Haifa, Israel in 2012, and he had made the team before I coached him, but I prepared him for that meet. And you know, Zygmunt saw him in the training hall and really liked his technique and speed, and offered him a place at the OTC. And he had graduated law school by that point, and you know, Kyle gave himself, like, if I don't really meet these goals, you know, within a year or so, then I'm just going to go become a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, because he passed the bar exam and all that. So Kyle moved on. You know, he had a lot of potential. You know, he did, I think, something like 160 and 195 in training. And, you know, 97 kilos, not that much over 94 kilos, but he just, I don't know, just couldn't replicate those in competition. You know, and I don't know why, but, you know, Zygmunt doesn't know why either. You know, you know, so I use all of the things I've learned, and I blended it into my own system, my own selection of exercises. I include a lot of exercises that are from the Russian Soviet era, some exercises that the Chinese do that the Russians don't do, and vice versa. When I teach a beginner who have problems with stability, I teach them how to pull from the floor to the knee, then from the floor to the hip, and then I teach them how to power snatch, because if you're not stable in the power snatch position, you're not going to be stable in the full power snatch position. Same thing with the power clean. So, you know, some already have a lot of flexibility and mobility, and when they learn how to power snatch, the turnover to learn the full snatch is pretty quick. While others, they need more time. You know, so with beginners, I include a lot more powers, you know, 2 power snatches, overhead squat, things like that. We just start working in complexes until I want them to act and react more than anything else. I want as little conscious thought as possible. So I'll put them in positions, you know, my SPP pull exercise. I mean, I'm not the one I didn't come up with it, I didn't invent it, but I'm the first one that really pointed it out in the US. Like, a lot of people do pulls and lifts from a deficit, but I'm the one who's like, get half your heel off. half the foot off, you know, and stay on your quads, and let's see how balanced you are when you pull.
It's so much different. I started throwing that into my front squats a little bit just to get more quad.
And people go, oh wow, you know, I'm really expending too much energy off the floor, or I'm really working too hard. I've shown it to Jared Fleming, I've shown it to Travis Cooper, Mike Zella, Tom Soroka, and even John McGovern, I think.
Oh, really?
I talked with John a few times. Okay. Before he got injured, he injured his knee, and Zygmunt would always be, when he was out, you know, with other teams internationally, you know, John would post, you know, can someone tell me what I'm doing wrong here? And I would just private message him, because I'm not wanting to get in a debate with anybody. I'm just like, John, you know, I think I can tell you what's going on, what I see, and if it makes sense to you, try what I recommend. And, you know, he got back to me. We talked in video chat a few times, and I showed him some video of some other lifters of his weight class, and it's like, you see what they're doing and you see what you're doing. He's like, yeah, so this is what you need to do. You know, and that's my way of coaching is, you know, I see a lot of U.S. coaches tell people and lifters what they're not doing, what they're doing wrong. They keep pointing out what you're doing wrong. But if you keep pointing out what they're doing wrong, they're going to keep making that error. Yeah. If you keep them focused on what to do right.
Yeah.
You know, keep it simple. Yes. Keep it just simple and keep them focused on what to do right. Then sooner or later that switch is going to go off, that light bulb is going to go off, and they're going to get it. You know, but you have to, progress isn't linear in weightlifting, but at least in your mind, you have to keep them thinking as linear as you can.
And visualization is huge. Like if you tell them what's wrong, they visualize the thing that they're doing wrong. Exactly. But you have to make them visualize the right movement.
Yeah, it's a very visual sport, you know, which is like huge. Cheryl's a great artist. Yes. You know, I don't know if you've, again.
Kane's also a really great artist. Like I'm noticing that's a huge trend. Very visually.
You know, Cheryl graduated from the Savannah School of Art and Design, and you know, some of her etchings, if you've seen the documentary Strong, they show some of her artwork and sketches, and they're phenomenal. You know, very visual person. You know, and so.
That's kind of our sport is visual learning. Like we watch all these videos.
You didn't really have to coach Cheryl. Yeah. How to do anything. You showed her, maybe explained her a couple of things. You wound her up, and she would go. You know, so when I say, you know, anyone really coached her, I use that term loosely because she figured it out. Yeah. You know, just like Mozart figured out how to play the piano.
Yeah. I think ultimately to be especially this sport, but like any sport or any sort of endeavor, you have to be your own sort of coach to a degree, but you also should have several wells of information, of mentors that you need to be able to dip into and contact and constantly learning. Like if you think you can do it all on your own, it's a laughable experience.
I mean, there are coaches that I heavily depend on, you know, because I mean, like, you know, every coach has weaknesses, and you know, sometimes, you know, I really struggle with how to convey how I want jerks to be done, you know, and that's one of my weaknesses, is how to really coach the jerk effectively. And you know, there are always coaches I immediately go to. I'll send them video or something and say, hey, what do you see? What's going on? And they go, well, what you're saying is right, but you could put it this way. I think
it's
just
phrasing. It's so,
you know, you got somebody who has 20 more years of experience than you, and just put it a little differently and see if that helps, or blindfold them or something, you know. Like Elise Matthews, when I was at Core, you know, she was watching, she's a movement specialist, and she was watching a certain lifter and goes, you know, the power is there to drive the bar overhead. It's just that she's not comfortable in the split position because of her back injuries. So get her comfortable in the split position, have her do ball slams, you know, have her do side slams, just have her stay balanced and have her feel like what it's like to be balanced so that she can be comfortable splitting underneath the bar. And lo and behold, like 3-4 weeks later, you know, she's jerking perfectly.
Well, yeah.
You know,
that actually is huge right there.
Yeah. So it's not necessarily, you know, fixing the jerk by doing more jerks.
No, it's
you know, finding a selection of exercises that helps them figure out the balance and the stability of the jerk. Yeah. Because a lot of lifters can drive the bar overhead, but then when it's time to recover, they really screw up.
Yep.
You know, so.
That's huge right there. So like anybody listening, that's gold. It's reinforced. Like basketball, you have to, a big thing is when you shoot the ball, you have to have a follow through. You have to have the flick of the wrist.
Sure.
A lot of early athletes don't have that flick of the wrist, and so the biggest thing is just teach an athlete holding the hand up and have that wrist just already flicked, and kind of over time you naturally kind of move into that position. So what you did right there is just translated that with the split jerk, and that's awesome. I didn't even, like, you just blew my mind right there. I can't wait to help someone with that one.
Well, I didn't really come up with that. I was shown that. I was fortunate enough to coach at a couple of different places that had physical therapists, massage therapists, and movement specialists. And when I began training more seriously in martial arts, and I was taught a whole new world of balance and understanding balance, that immediately transferred to weightlifting.
Yeah.
And my pursuit of really understanding the Chinese and Asian philosophy, because the Korean philosophy is North and South Korea is very Russian. Very Soviet Russian influenced, and it might have changed now. Coach Kang's been retired since 2000, and I do see some Koreans pulling differently now than the way he taught it, and it's not that much different, but it is a little different. But the sport's always changing and evolving, and you can't just. There are some people that just there's a difference between being able to produce force adequately and then being able to stabilize that force overhead.
Yeah.
It's two different things, and stability precedes force production. So, you have to have a stable body, stable joint, stable joint structure and able to stabilize weights overhead in the snatch and clean and jerk. Because there are people that pull like freaking maniacs. They can pull extremely well, but yet when it's time to lock it out and secure a snatch or jerk overhead, they fall to pieces.
Oh man.
And that's a whole different ballgame. So, stability precedes force production. If people don't believe that, I want to laugh at it. Try firing a cannon in a canoe.
Yeah.
The canoe's going to sink.
Try hitting a baseball with a noodle.
Try hitting a baseball with a curved bat.
Yeah, it's so different.
It's not going to happen. You can swing as hard as you can, and the ball may go a foot.
Yeah, it's all about stability and having a strong foundation.
A lot of people are like, what's the difference between mobility and stability? I'm like,
that's the whole difference.
Well, yeah, okay, so someone can be mobile enough to do a split. They can be flexible enough and mobile enough to do a split. If I come over to you and you're in a side split or front, a split where your foot's fore and aft, one leg's in front, one leg's behind you, and I press down a little bit on your shoulders, can you get out of that position, or are you stuck there? And the same way, like if a lifter's doing Jefferson curls, and that's one of my favorite bang for the buck exercises to strengthen the lower back and to keep the spine in a line, is Jefferson curls. Gymnasts do it. Okay, so a lifter can, you're gonna, in that regard, be strong if you can do your body weight for one rep. If you can lower the bar 4 inches below your feet and be in a standing pike position, like divers get into, or yoga, like if you can grab the back of your ankles and basically touch your shin with your face.
Yeah.
Well, if you can be in that position with the bar 4 inches below your toes, you're very, very mobile. Now, can we put 40 kilos on the barbell, and can you work through that range of motion with resistance? Because, if you can get in that position with no weight, you're mobile. But if you can oppose force and do that get in that range of motion with resistance and standing back up, then you're stable.
Okay.
As well, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, totally.
That's a very simple way, of explaining it. I'm sure there are more effective or scientific ways of explaining it, but that's just how I help laymen understand it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And beyond wonderful episode, I've enjoyed talking with you. Where can people find you to get more information or coach, learn underneath you, like be an athlete?
They can go to my website, palmettoweightlifting.com, and read my blogs.
Very good.
You can go to the Palmetto Weightlifting Instagram page and see me work with various kinds of athletes from beginner to more advanced. And there's a Palmetto Weightlifting Facebook page as well, although I'm not as active on that because I have Instagram and the website, and I try to write 1 or 2 blogs every month, but I'm very dyslexic. And it takes me a long time to really get the point across. Like I'll write pages and pages and pages, and I'll write about 24 pages and then edit it down to 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And but some of my blogs have been shared worldwide, and some of the most read are in an explanation of 2 Russian terms, U.S. versus China, which was published by MASH Elite, and Truth versus feelings was a popular one, and the principle of TNT was one that a few Russian coaches shared, and because that's a Russian term. And I hope to put out some more. I would like to increase my output of blogs. It's just, I wish it was easier.
Yeah, it's work.
But I'm quite dyslexic, so.
It's also because you care so much about what you put in there,
right,
too.
Right, like I want the content to be, simple.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw a bunch of jargon or terminology out there that people need to go look up in a dictionary. I want to take the complex and make it as simple as possible for people to understand.
Yeah, and that's real coaching.
Like I have a blog post, explaining neuromuscular coordination, because that's what, people who want to get into coaching or get into weightlifting, if you want to understand weightlifting, then you don't need to go learn about force, like velocity curves and all these charts and graphs. Like, you just need to learn basic biology, and from there
Physiology.
you need to have a more comprehension of physics and biology, but start simple and then add on to it. It's like, if you want to learn how to repair a car, and learn the basics of a car engine, then start learning the more complicated stuff. But, I've learned how to repair, car engines myself, how to replace alternators, and, it's all because, I started out with really simple stuff, how to change the oil myself, how to change fan belts myself, and then I got to the more complex stuff that involves some circuitry, but I'd rather do that than pay someone else to do it.
Yeah.
If I can do it myself, I want to do it myself. So.
Oh, it's all a journey, it's all a process.
Yeah, so it's the same thing with weightlifting. Is you just start out with the basics. It's like trying to play an instrument. Don't learn Jimi Hendrix the first day.
Oh yeah.
Learn basic chords.
Learn the Beatles. The Beatles are wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cat Stevens, like you said.
Yeah, learn the basics, and from there, just expand your knowledge. If you, like with me, I try to learn more about anatomy and physiology. So 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day. Go learn anatomy, learn biology, learn about nerves, learn about the nervous system. Mm-hmm. And just spend a little bit of time studying each day and. Learn more about physical rehabilitation, and listen to Christopher Sommer, the longtime coach of men's gymnastics. His podcasts and interviews with Tim Ferriss and Barbell Shrugged.
Oh, those are all good.
Are amazing, and he loves weightlifting, and he talks about weightlifting for a good 25 minutes in the Tim Ferriss interview.
Yeah.
The first one he does, it's about 3.5 hours long, but he loves weightlifting. But he makes a very good point that. If the best weightlifters in the world are stretching their asses off 25, 30 minutes a day before or after training, then why aren't we?
Yeah.
Because I remember watching Klokov train in a pretty light training session. He came to Salt Lake City in 2014, and, he worked up. He said his back was bothering him, so he wasn't squatting. He just did some light snatches, some pulls, and then he did a ton of mobility work, and he was very gracious. A lot of people kind of imposed, in on his space and just really didn't ask if they could speak to him. They just took his photo or asked him a question. He was really gracious with it. He's a very nice guy, and I got to spend some time with him because, I was, my former lifter, Kyle, he was really good friends with Norik Vardanyan, and Norik had just come back to the U.S., and Norik's father, Yuri Vardanyan, is a huge hero. He set 40 world records.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, without the clean and press, he set 40 world records in the clean and jerk in the 70s, in the old 75 and 82.5 kilo weight classes, and he's a huge figure. And so, of course, when Dimitri saw Norik, he came up to him and in the hotel, and Norik doesn't speak Russian. And Dimitri was learning English and was speaking it fairly well, so they spoke in English. And then, then Dimitri met Kyle, and then he met me, and shook his hand. He went, "Oh, big guy," and every female screamed when they saw Klokov, like Bono or somebody.
He's the rock star.
Oh yeah.
Him, and now Toriko, I can't think his name.
Alexei.
Yeah.
The Ukrainian. Yeah.
Yeah, he's big now.
Yeah.
Kendrick gets a little bit too. But
I think he went up to maybe 170 in the snatch, but he still warmed up very thoroughly. Did his shoulder mobility, and
Something light for him.
Now that, Zygmunt's here and, the warm-up he had at the OTC on the warm-up, he has people do at his training facility now. It's very comprehensive. And one thing that Zygmunt was, I talked with him at length several times when Kyle was there. I had a lot of questions for him in general about warming up. And, he was like, Stephen, when I first got here and the first, group of people that were here, he goes, these lifters were lifting a long time for the U.S. and they failed my warm-up. He's like, they failed my warm-up. He was in shock. And some people are of the opinion, well, yeah, it took him a long time to acclimate to know that we weren't on drugs. He knew we weren't on drugs. Part of it was we were that out of shape.
Yeah.
Like in the terms that we did, they Different failed culture. His warm-up. They failed warm-up. He was just, his beady blue eyes would just stick out like furious anger. You just could not believe that we were that immobile, but we were. But our attitudes towards auxiliary work and abdominal work and core work and stability have changed. It's absolutely necessary. You can't skip it.
Nope. That's awesome. Great way to end on that one. That's a perfect one. And I'm going to let you go because I know we got lifters that want to lift.
Well, you're going to train too, right?
Oh, yeah. I can't wait. I'm excited to get here. Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
All right, y'all. Thank you again so much for listening to this last episode with Stephen Powell. It was our 10th episode, so I was super excited to get to the magical number 10. That was like a little benchmark for me. But don't worry, I have more content and more episodes coming your way. Stay tuned, and hope to hear from y'all soon. Peace.